What's up, all you hitchhikers?
Hello.
Welcome back to another episode of The Strange Road.
Strange.
We've been rocking with Strange Happenings.
Road. Yep.
Last week we had...
Strange Happenings have been on fire.
Yeah, absolutely. We had a few gigs
Fuego.
last week and had to kind of dial it back a little bit. But we're back this week with another interview episode.
Very happy to be back
And
with a guest.
this is going to be a good one. We have the returning Intercontinental Champ.
The heavyweight,
Vijay
superweight.
is back, and we met Vijay. If you guys haven't seen our
While back,
episodes with Vijay,
Yeah.
episode 4 and 5,
Yeah.
definitely go back and check those out and kind of lay a little bit.
That's
of the
when he was here in the
foundation.
States too.
Yes, yeah.
We'll go through all that, but yeah, that's when he was local.
Yeah, we
well,
did an episode
Close.
with Vijay and Lil Brozone.
Yeah.
Where him and his family came down.
Yeah.
Came up rather from Cincy, and we shot an episode with. We couldn't fit you back then because we had a tiny little 12 by 9 closet.
It's about the size of a standard, state prison cell.
Yeah, so we had a lot going on.
Wasn't very big
in that space, and then
small room to work in.
2021, the summer of 2021, Vijay says, "I'm moving back to India."
Yeah,
and I said, "Oh God, we need to get him on
Time
before
to get on
he
it.
leaves."
Right.
So we had this space, but it was like beta mode.
Yeah,
we had nothing really set.
But
or
the interview's
permanent.
still nice.
Yeah, it's looks
really great.
really nice. We had like TV back here, and there's no paint on the walls. Gray paint was up, but very basic, and we had a great conversation.
How about the sign staying lit?
Hey, the sign.
The sign's
If you
lit.
guys haven't noticed,
Usually
this
it
light
goes
behind
out on us every
It's been
day.
going out the last few episodes.
Yeah, every time.
And just shutting off. So
we never look at it, so now I'm kind of like in my peripheral. I'm just making sure.
I think I fixed it today. But
Mikey took care of it. It's beautiful. Just like it to look sharp.
So we've got a whole array of topics.
We've got them chiseled on the whiteboard.
VJ's background is in psychology.
Yeah.
So he's got a really cool perspective when it comes to, ancient sites in Ohio, ancient sites in India,
Right.
and been able to make all these different connections with languages is kind of the most interesting stuff. And his language of Tamil. And shout out to the YouTube channels that Vijay was on in India.
Right.
In September and October.
I heard about this after we fired back
views.
up. Yeah.
Insane views. Those YouTube channels are posted in the description. If you want to check out, it's a Tamil language program. There's 3 different channels that he was on. And our video started getting hit from links that they put in their description show. So giving them a bit of a shout out.
Right.
But let's bring in Vijay. Let's welcome Vijay to the show.
Kyle the Wizard, can you hit the magic buttons? And Disbro, the Wizard Apprentice,
I forgot to,
can you rock out the audio?
By the way, I'm Mikey. This is Bub.
Hey, what's up?
And Stoner is always directing, hitting all the magic buttons. And we have Matt Disbro in the house as well. Shout out to everybody in the chat as well.
Yeah.
Real quick, everybody in the chat.
We got a lot of people looking forward to this from what it sounds like.
We got
what
Justin,
Mr. Wizard.
2 Justins, Burton and Kenneth and Flutz and Stoner's dad, always returning with us.
Stoner's dad's picture is a raccoon, isn't it? I love it.
Yep. But yeah, let's bring Vijay in. Vijay, welcome back
What
to
up,
the
Vijay?
show. We are so happy to have you back. Like I said, you are the returning Intercontinental Champion of the Strange Road, and we hopped on a call. It would have been last night, 1 a.m. for you, and 1 p.m. for me today. And so you went to sleep, and then we came down here, prepped for the episode, and so now you're here with us in the morning in India. So thank you so much for doing this.
Really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. So Vijay, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing awesome, Mike and Bob. I'm really happy to be here in this morning talking to you guys about something very important that the world needs to know. And thank you, Kyle and Matt, for being here, equipping everything for us. So I'm going to consider this as a brand new video. So, somebody watching this video for the first time would know what we are going to be talking about and what this is all about. This is not just a talk show for me because the information that I'm trying to communicate with the rest of the world, especially with the people in the US, I consider that as very important. Apart from the essentials that we have, the entertainment that we have, it's a very key thing to know what we are, who we are, and why we are on this planet doing what we are doing. So all these things, even though they sound irrelevant to what we are aiming at doing, they are all relevant to that. That's something that we have to know, and that's the perspective we have to look at. Somebody who doesn't have a background in archaeology or linguistics or anything to do with these digging up the past. I'm from a tech background as well. It's a weird combination that I'm from a tech background as well as doing psychology,
Right.
as to being a student of psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm into this, which is totally irrelevant to me. And the spiritual side of what I'm trying to explore has got, in many people's perspective, it's got nothing to do with archaeology or history. But the truth is that it's got more relevance to each other. Digging up the past is very important to us because we have lost the connection totally.
Right.
The evolution of our society is leading us completely to the dark, and we are just becoming zombies who have completely lost connection with nature and who we are actually from the past.
Do you
So
think
when
it's
we
like a
go,
fairy tale almost, VJ? Like when we think of the Romans, the Greeks, biblical times, it almost seems like it seems like a made up story. We know it's history, but it almost seems so far removed we're not connected to it. Is that kind of what you're saying with not having that relationship to the history in the past?
considering the fact that we learn only a little bit of history, and history is always written by the winners, we don't know what really happened,
Well put.
and what we learn is only probably 0.5 percentage of what really happened. So the wise people, like the most intelligent people who are observing the world as it is, will will not just observe things as it is from the history, but try to understand what could have really happened, what has led these people to write this down.
Mm-hmm.
And people will understand that this is probably not what happened, this is what happened, but they are projecting it as like this. Just like how we see in news these days, we know what happened when we see an incident happening on the TV, and we know why they are putting that in the news to distract people. So like the history is a compilation of all the news things that happened. When Michael Jackson told, be careful about what you write in the newspapers today, because what you write today in the newspapers becomes history tomorrow, and that's
Right.
what students are going to learn. Right, so that's what has happened all through this time. Whatever history we have is not what really happened, is what I would say. So it's we have to be wise to understand what really would have happened in that time. So that is something that we gain through experience, and a different perspective towards human beings and their behavior. And when I say digging up the past, I'm not talking about digging up the recent past. I'm not talking about 1,000 years or 400 years, the history of the Europeans coming to the U.S. Those have a wider you know base of knowledge to access. So if you want to really know about Thomas Jefferson, you can go back and refer to some books, and you have tons of information about him. If you want to know about John Adams, you want to know about Abraham Lincoln, you have tons of information because it's been recorded perfectly, and language is still the same. You still can read it, understand, and you can understand what could have happened at that time, a point of time. But when we go back 1,000 years, when you go back 2,000 years, or even before that, the information that we get needs to be decoded
Yeah,
because
gets
the
a little
language is
fuzzy.
different.
It gets fuzzy. The
Hmm.
longer you go
Correct.
back, there's just no evidence.
Hmm.
So I
Exactly.
totally agree. 2,000 years, anything past that, it's like, well, we got some tablets and some cuneiform, and
Hmm.
it's just a giant puzzle.
Well, but it does
Correct.
kind of go to say
And
go to his point of saying like the victors write the history, right? And it always makes me think of how I'm like, it frustrates me that we invented language to communicate ideas at first, right? So that we could bridge between one another, and then we learned how to pervert it, to lie to each other, to
right.
distort, to
Well, that's
it
funny you bring that
irritates
up.
me to no end.
We'll talk about something like
God,
that
it
a
drives
little
me
later. One
crazy.
of the topics that we want to talk about is that exact same thing. So
Drives
that's
me
going to come
nuts.
back full circle. VJ, let's go back a little bit. For those that don't,
Yeah.
haven't maybe watched your episodes,
Rewind.
haven't seen any of the interviews from you, maybe give us a little background of your time here in the U.S. And it seems like when you were here, a lot of what you're going through right now with your travels, which we'll get to, and some of those things, what kind of got you down this, I guess, path of discovery
Yeah.
that you're on?
Got the ball rolling.
Um, More than digging up the past of what happened in the world, I started digging up the past of myself, like my own self. So I'm not going to claim that I'm the only one who's doing spiritual researches, because every human being, a conscious human being, wants to know what happened. The moment the baby is born, it is so surprised about its surroundings. It wants to know why it's here and what it's doing here. That's where the spiritual search starts. And everything that happens around the infant suppresses that search, and this baby stops searching for that from that moment, because it's all about survival and living and entertainment, so many distractions. So but if we go back, like especially when you meditate, when you sit and meditate for a long time, you would come across a point where you would go back and if I self evaluate yourselves in your past, and that would go back to your the very first day when you were born. And that first day when you were born, that would give you a totally different perspective. It's like you were stuck in a bubble for a long time, and before that you were in a sack of uh, bag. Before that, you don't know where you were.
Right.
Now all of a sudden you're born here, and you're thrown into an unknown terrain, and you meet some people all of a sudden who claim to be your father, your mother, your siblings, and that's a distraction from this spiritual journey. So if you go back to figure out who you are, that is when all these things come up. I'm not even going to call it a spiritual journey. I'm just going to call it a thirst, a quest that every
Yeah.
human being, every conscious human being should have. So
Mm-hmm.
provided you have food, shelter, clothes, entertainment, sex, and everything that you need, that is when your mind would next go to.
The
So your
basics.
essentials are here.
Right.
Exactly. So
Right.
yes, I would say that this is what led me to do this. It might sound irrelevant to you, like what's this got to do with that?
No,
No,
It
not at
is
all.
so relevant.
Not at all.
totally.
Mm.
Not at all.
So, mhm. So a self search is what has led me to oppose so many people and say, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do what you asked me to do. I've done these so many days. I'm not going to do this anymore because it sounds totally meaningless to me. There is something more important for me to do. So I'm going to explore what I want to do.
Good for
So
you.
that's what led me to this. But the most interesting part in this is that when I came to the U.S., where when the rest of the world come looks at the United States of America, they don't see what I see. That's
Right.
that's just about my perspective, because they think it's a mechanical society where people work, and it's a big, it's full of skyscrapers and
Not
officials
everywhere.
like corporates. Not everywhere,
No,
right?
not everywhere.
So absolutely. So that was very interesting for me to find that the US itself had its own history, its own past, which has been completely covered up.
Right.
And there are different political reasons that it's being covered up. I'm not going to blame them, because that's how humans act. Like every land in this world is politically governed, and these kind of things happen. The past is being suppressed because we are going through a paradigm shift where there is a necessity for the whole society, the people who are running the show, to cover up everything that is in the past, so people don't go back to for trying to figure out who they are. Instead, just work, pay taxes, and entertain the whole system, so it keeps running. So some people step out of this, see what's running, what's actually happening,
Right.
and they see things, like in a third person's perspective. That's when they understand what's really going on. So that's one thing that was interesting when I came to the US. My spiritual journey was kind of restarted there.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Because
great.
So when I was there, when I saw the historical sites, and when I go to a Hindu temple, I would feel the vibes. I would really want you to feel that when you come to India, when you walk into a temple,
Yeah.
that it could be scientific too, because how the radioactivity is high in granite.
Could
Yes.
be.
Um,
I did not
there,
know that. Wait,
yeah,
radioactivity in granite is high?
yes, there's a railway station in the US which is completely made up of granite stones, and they measure the radioactivity there. It is so high in in that space, in that particular railway station. You can probably Google about it.
Did
Now,
not
all
know
these
that.
temples that I'm talking about, yeah, these are all made up of granite stones.
Mm-hmm.
It could be that, or it could be the whole engineering setup, everything that the architecture, the angle in which this is placed, the magnetic point in which the temples are placed. It could be so many things that actually makes this feeling that you get when you walk into a temple.
Mm-hmm.
I had the same feeling when I walked into historical sites in the US. That
Wow.
was a game changer for me. So, before that, I did not have any idea about connecting a site on another continent with a temple in India in a small village. But
Wow.
this
Can I ask you a
feeling that
question?
happened to me, sure, go ahead.
I, just because the way you're kind of comparing it seems like something that happened to me once that it's making me think of,
Oh, here
but
we
you're
go.
saying coming over here and seeing a different site
Serpent mounds.
stirred up
Some of the
something in
carvings.
you. I had the same when we were
Yeah.
in Thailand. We're in this temple
Yeah.
at the royal palace in this, it's a giant square, and they have the temple of the jade Buddha, and they have,
Mm.
and I just remember it being so loud and so hot, and everybody sitting on the floor, and it's like, whatever, marble floor. And then it was really weird. At some point it just got quiet, and I started kind of like freaking out a little bit. I was like, what just happened? I thought like my hearing had gone
Uh-huh.
out, just randomly.
Calmness.
Right. So we're sitting on the ground like Indian style and all of our legs, and I'm sitting next to my friend's wife, and then it's just me on the end. So I'm sitting next to her, and I started like feeling like an energy, like a buzzing, and it's really quiet, and it was just very strange. And I started hearing almost a dialogue of like of a narrative coming into me. I don't want to say it because it sounds crazy, but
Not at all.
it was very basic. It was just like you're beginning to know yourself. You're understand, like just really weird things. And I was like, I feel like I'm gonna explode. So I was like,
It's a lot.
my friend's wife's knee was touching my knee, and I was like, I'm going to send this energy that
To
way.
her.
And I didn't tell her until we went to dinner later that night, and we started talking about our day as we had gone on our travels. And I was like, just wanted to ask. I didn't say anything at the time, but did you notice? And she said, you did that, because she felt it. And I was like, yeah, I feel like I could feel that energy. So that's what I'm saying. I didn't know if it was just based off of, say, the materials constructing the
think it's
building
all
or
of it.
the temple,
I think
or
it's all of it. Geometry, mathematics.
that's what I'm saying.
Astronomy.
The intention of the
the
people in the room, the
architecture.
collective power of thought. I don't know
Well,
what, because it was wild.
It's embedded.
I've never
into
had
the-
it happen again.
It's embedded into the temple. All those chants. I mean, the
was
places
really
in
wild.
Ohio, whether it's in India or Thailand, they're chanting. People are coming there for thousands of years. They're singing. They're chanting.
Right.
There's a certain resonant field that those places have
Fair enough.
amplified.
It's making me get fired up just thinking about it. It was such a good experience. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah.
just so
Ab-
weird. It
Absolutely.
felt like a dream almost. But I can understand.
Yes,
Again,
it
it's
does.
weird to you go somewhere else and you have this different perspective because it looks kind of like what you know, but it's not the same imagery you'd be accustomed to. It's not the same overall aesthetic and design. So you're kind of like, I've seen this before, but for some reason it just shakes you a little differently. And that's just, I've never heard anybody else say that. They've had the same reaction. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Ex- Well, you don't sound crazy at all from an Indian
I
perspective.
appreciate it.
The
See,
reason being,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mike.
oh no, I was just saying that's Americans. We're taught like, oh, don't believe in that. Don't believe
That's-
in the paranormal.
right.
Ghosts aren't real.
Right.
But you like he has this different perspective
We're not
coming
open to
from
it.
yeah.
We don't naturally tune into it, and we don't naturally have that kind of ability to resonate with it or feel that frequency.
It's
we just-
changing though. Here, it's changing.
once you understand it, though, and you kind of feel the effects or can tap into it, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
it definitely changed my mindset that day forward of how I viewed a lot of interactions or doing different yoga practices. That when I used to meditate a lot and listen to just different frequencies on my headphones and kind of do my kundalini, that was very strange and very fun. I haven't done it in a long time, but I remember that getting very interesting to where
It's
it was
weird.
like,
Yeah.
I've just never experienced it. And so being open to that and looking down those avenues has been a fun experience and process. But with your journey and coming over here again and kind of jump starting over here, it's just so funny. So what was it over here? Was there one particular site? Was there one instance? Was it culmination of your travels in the U.S.?
I would say that it happened in 90% of the sites that I was in. Starting with Serpent Mound, I went to Chillicothe, there where we have the Hopewell Cultural National Park.
Right.
Then I went to Cahokia Mounds.
Cahokia is
I didn't
great.
want to spend my Cahokia is absolutely amazing. So I particularly did not want to spend my time going to these fancy places. So I convinced my family to come to these boring places instead, which is not boring for me. So yeah, they hopped onto the car and came along with me for a long ride, and just climbed the mountain or the mountains with me. They, they had fun too, but I had totally a different perspective towards these things, and that experience. It was really good. I never expected this experience from the US.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for that either,
Well, but
and
that's
I
the
wasn't.
perfect moment. That's the perfect moment. You're not
Uh,
looking for it, and you get sucker punched by it. You're like, what? Just where did that come from?
Right.
you're exactly right. When I talk to some people who kind of guide me in this matter, they told me that this is supposed to happen to you. They were equally surprised because it happened on another land, not in India.
Mm.
So this was supposed to happen in a temple in India, but it happened in a historical site in the US. So, but the incident was not a surprise at all for people who are guiding me here. This experience that you had, Bob,
Yeah.
you are gifted to get that experience because
Yep.
not a lot of people have that experience. That is the problem with the people who come from countries like the US and other countries in the Europe. They have that in them. They are ready for that, but they don't know what to do with that.
Right. Right.
It's like you have a sword in your hand and you don't know what to do with that.
Right.
And you need somebody to teach you how to handle that sword
Yeah.
so you can become a good swordsman. So that's the, that's a really good experience that you had. So it's like a rope. Once you catch that frequency in which your mind can vibrate and resonate to that frequency that it's emitting, that's where you start your journey from. And I would say you're still distracted from what you're supposed to be doing. So if you go back to that frequency and tap more into that, just like how a receiver will work, and
Right.
a frequency modulation receiver would work, trying to gain another frequency and play music for you.
Right.
Just like that, you tap into that and you keep into that frequency,
Tune
you
back
would
in.
start playing more music.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but you got time, but we all have family. We have different goals in our life.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to ask you to just come become a sage in India, no. But
Yeah.
you
I would
realize
love
that
to.
frequency.
I
You
would love
realize that,
to.
right?
Yeah,
Absolutely,
I
you're
think
most
it's just
welcome
one
to
of
do
those
that.
things too of where again I had heard about, oh, if you listen to this tonal frequency or these kind of different combinations and you have these really kind of sound deprivation headphones on to where you don't hear anything but those. It was weird when the certain frequencies would hit, you would feel it in different places hit.
Chakras.
Right. And that's when
Absolutely.
it really started getting
Yep.
stranger, but then it was kind of this goes back to that CIA report thing I gave to somebody
Yeah.
else. And they were talking about tapping into kind of the ephemeral and like the energy surrounding the earth, right? And doing this through yogic practices and Kundalini yoga and
Astral
they,
traveling.
right. But they were saying how it starts at your toes and works up your legs. And I was like, that's when I started freaking out because I was like, it sounded like somebody was writing my experience because
Right.
that's exactly how it works. It starts at the tips of your toes and it starts going up your body, and as you tune in more and more to it, it starts coursing
Yep.
through you.
VJ's a Kundalini yogi, man. He'll tell you all about
It's so wild. It's the
Absolutely.
most wild. It's like being on a roller coaster. It's
Mhm.
very, yeah, it's different. Very different.
So this frequency that you match to, so we didn't have headphones like 200 or 300 years ago, or
Right.
many thousand years ago. So imagine you yourself experimenting with these vibrations just by using sounds of your mouth. It's more of an internal thing when you make that sound yourself. So
Okay.
you will feel the vibration from the top to bottom through your vocal cord,
Right.
and that's totally another different experience. Now you know, you have a sample of what it would the experience would be like. So it's for you to now experiment. And we use the sound ohm.
Right.
Ohm is like, I would say, in sound codes, it's like 0 and 1. It's like the big bang sound. So
Okay.
this is 0 and the blast is 1. So this has no value. When the moment it blasts, it has a value, it's 1. So it's O and M, or two sounds put into one. This sound is the frequency that is in every, not just living things, but everything on the planet.
It's in the earth.
Everything vibrates.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's in the
It's in the
earth.
whole universe.
Yeah. Well, there's a
It's in
frequency
the
to
whole
the
universe.
vibration of the earth as we're turning that is coming up through that core that I used to watch a tracker on that would say
Mhm.
what the different frequency of the earth was every day and like the
Mhm.
abnormalities and looking at those abnormal days and comparing what happened today in the planet. How strange was society? Did that send a shift throughout the planet in a certain way? Because it vibrates at the same frequency that a car or a fan does, which most people remember falling asleep as a kid in a
that's why
car,
my kids fall asleep in the
fall
car.
asleep to a fan,
Yeah,
because that's the
they're
same
little.
frequency as the Earth's internal ohm that it creates. You can Google it and find the tracker, and you can listen to it actually as well. But you're exactly right,
Ancient
VJ.
Indians knew that shit before
It's
scientific instrumentation.
right. It's always vibrating up to us. We're always feeling this vibration, right? But what do we are you able to tap into that? Can you feel that level of energy, or
Yeah.
is that something that we just inherently don't understand that is always happening to where it's just kind of secondary and in the background?
Just not tuned into it.
So we are like, let me throw some science into this.
Sure.
So we are like a fish in a bowl,
Okay.
and we think that the bowl is the whole world. It's a human perspective. We think that we are the center of this whole universe.
Right.
When you come out of this, if you look at the solar system, the sun takes 90 percentage of the solar system. The rest of the things, the planets, the asteroid belt, everything else, it's only 10 percentage of it. And the
Right.
solar system is not what you see. It's not just the 9 planets. There is a bigger sphere for the whole sun. The gravitation of the sun extends beyond that. And if you see the space between the Pluto and the last thing that is, acting upon the sun, it's a whole big thing. And that is what you should see when you're talking about vibrations.
Hmm.
So the earth vibration is fine. You are living on it, so you feel that vibration.
Right.
But if you go back and see, the sun is vibrating at trillion, trillion, trillion times
Wow, I've
more
never
than the
thought about that.
Hmm.
That's blowing my mind at the moment. So is it sending out
earth.
like gravitational waves at the same time from its energy as it's coming at us, kind of thing? Are we being affected by that as well? Are we feeling that impact?
I'm not going to say you're being affected by that, but I'm going to say you are sun.
Oh,
So sun is the father, and it's the father of this whole solar system. Everything else is the result of the sun. So
Hmm.
it's not like we take sun as one of these entities. It's not that.
right.
Sun is the center of the whole thing, and everything else is dependent on it.
Absolutely.
Like we are dependent on the earth for all the resources, all the planets are dependent on sun for all the resources that it needs. Without sun, for a minute, there is nothing left. The
Oh,
whole thing
correct.
collapses,
Right.
Right.
right?
Absolutely.
So can you believe, like, you have fire burning like 10 feet away? Can you feel the heat? You can't feel the heat,
Nope.
right? It's like 20 feet away, 30 feet away, you can't feel the heat. And can you believe that something is burning from so far away? It's
Mm.
burning from a very far distance, but you still feel the heat.
Mm-hmm.
So the heat, along with the light, not just the light, light can travel anywhere, like any amount of distance. But can you believe the heat is traveling so long for like 8.5 minutes,
Right.
and then it still you can feel the heat. You
Right.
can burn something with the heat that you magnify out of sun. So
That's
I want you to feel the power of the sun through this idea.
yeah.
It's what is governing the whole thing. And that's part of our yoga where we connect with the sun, not just with the earth. Connecting with the earth philosophically or aesthetically, it's fine. But more looking at in a more scientific perspective, it will go back to the sun, because in some of the ancient texts, it's clearly mentioned that we are a result of the sun and the moon having sex, our consciousness itself. So you know how they call it a lunatic asylum when somebody goes insane?
Right.
Why do they call it a lunatic asylum?
People go crazy
So
during
it
full
is
moons.
associated.
At night.
Yeah, people go
Exactly.
crazy during full moons. Like
Well,
ERs go
lunar,
Exactly.
lunatic.
Yeah, the full
Mhm.
moon, lunar.
Moon. Exactly. So the moon has another impact on the beings that are on the planet. Just like how the high tides and low tides happen, moon's gravity can affect the behavior of a human being,
Right.
just like how it can affect the behavior of the earth itself
Oh, it
and
absolutely
what is
does.
on the earth. So we are going to play a game between the sun and the moon and the earth. Like earth is the ground where life is thriving. So it's like imagine something like this: the sun is throwing sperm cells on the earth, and the moon is throwing its female energy on earth, and the earth is the ground. It's the
I
the
see what
place
you're
where
saying.
life thrives, right?
Well, you need the
So
balance of both, is what you're saying, right?
correct,
I see what you're saying. To create
correct,
what's
exactly,
happening. Yeah.
exactly. So if you're sitting in a temple, you're not just going to be connecting with the temple. It's not just you and the temple. It is only like a transmitter that is going to connect you with higher vibrations
Mm-hmm.
that come from all over.
Gotcha.
And it
That
gets
makes
even
sense.
crazier.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm ready.
You know
I'm
why?
ready.
You
Take
ready?
take them off. Let's go.
Yes.
So imagine the sun as the nucleus of an atom.
Okay.
You know how an atom works, right?
Yep.
It has nucleus, it has proton, it has electron.
Mm-hmm.
It's positively charged, negatively charged, and it's neutrally charged. That's how it works, right? So imagine the same of the solar system. The sun is the nucleus, and all the planets that are revolving. And it's atoms are not just restricted to having one proton, one electron. There could be multiple of them,
Right.
right?
Right.
So imagine this is what it is. So this we are sitting on a proton, a positively charged uh, particle that goes around the nucleus, right? And there are the rest of the things that goes around the sun, and this atom is only a part of a bigger thing, of a bigger entity.
Make yeah.
So there are other things, and
Sure.
all of these are connected. So one atom is connected with another atom, and that's how this force between these atoms form a solid. Okay? You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
So you are sitting here now. You connected with the nucleus. Now you are ready to connect with other nucleuses.
Right.
Now your whole consciousness expands. Now you find that you are a part of a bigger system.
Mm.
Right.
So I'm going to give you a perspective about this. There is a cell in your body. Okay, there is a cell inside your body. This cell doesn't know that there is Bob. It
Right.
is inside of Bob. It
right.
doesn't.
Right.
Okay? It would never know that it's inside of Bob.
Yeah. Be like, sorry,
It
I
will
don't know
always
him.
think that,
Yeah.
right?
I don't know who that
But
is.
still, right? But it still provides all the things that you need.
Right.
It does its duty in
Right.
this whole big system. Right? It would never know. What if the cell knows that it is a part of your system, a human body, and that human body is Bob? So you become God for that cell,
Fair enough.
right?
Yeah. That's deep.
Right.
That's deep.
So, right. So imagine yourself as this cell who is trying to attain a consciousness where it is a part of a bigger system, and then a bigger system, and then a
Right.
bigger system.
Right.
That's what Buddhists say. There's veils of knowledge.
Well, that
So
Fibonacci
one
as
veil
it
goes up, there's another.
yeah
Right.
keeps expanding out,
It keeps
and
going.
multiplying on itself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sacred numbers.
That's why it's called a
Right.
journey. right?
Well, right.
It's a journey. It never stops. So you start the journey, it's never going to end. There's no end for soul. You keep coming back to this planet or somewhere else. You just keep experiencing the whole thing again and again. So, this is the perspective I want people to have when they're exploring spirituality. So it's not like you have a destination, you go there and you become God. No, that's not how it works. It's a journey, and it's
Right.
going to be a mind-blowing journey, just like how the baby feels when it comes out and like looks at everything.
That's a
It's
great,
confused for
great
the first three
analogy.
months,
Oh
Right.
yeah.
That's a
right?
great analogy.
And spiritual journey is going to throw things like that on your face, and it's going to keep you surprised, and the experience is not pleasant at
Right.
all the time.
Well, that's so
And your
true.
talent comes in. Your talent comes in where you perceive these things as pleasant as possible,
Mm-hmm.
because of the tremendous amount of knowledge. We are not ready for that.
Right.
We are not ready for any of that, because look at the chaos that's happening in the world for just a minimal amount of knowledge that we gathered through science, through a progressive step through science. This much of information, no human is ready for. The brain would blast.
Mm-hmm.
that's
Yeah. Yeah.
that's why they take it slow for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're not throwing encyclopedia when you're 2 years old. They teach you the sounds, they teach you the letters, words, and then they go take it slow. Just like that. Take the spiritual journey, slow and steady. That's all about it.
It's a
Absolutely.
marathon, not a race. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, your
Uh-huh.
your ego will beat you down. That's what you were talking about, those ups and downs. When you're on that journey and you're trying to, like you said earlier, do what you want to do. Do what it doesn't matter what anybody else is trying to make you, whether it's a job that you don't like or, doing what you feel is your path,
Yeah.
like your journey that you were on, and your ego will just beat you down. And it'll give you so many excuses to get off that path and to not do it. And that's where you get in those ups and downs in the journey,
Yeah.
is just purely your ego just trying to take back control of the wheel as it's losing control, and you're reaching these higher and higher levels
Yeah.
and leveling up. And
I don't know. I
we
think
all
I'm
fight
pretty good
that.
at being detached from an ego anymore because I just never really liked anybody with an ego when I was younger.
Yeah.
I just didn't like people that thought they were better just for no
Yeah.
reason. I was like, everybody's cool. I don't get it. Like why you think you're better, but I've never really had that perspective. So I've always kind of had that. I think I beat it down more than anything as far as
Yeah.
having one. Don't get me wrong. There's been times that I've definitely.
We all need one to.
Well, yeah,
like,
you need that muse,
that's
you need
some
that
of it, yeah.
fire, you need that inspiration, but keeping it balanced and in check,
Right.
And,
Being
and
grounded.
working with it rather than letting it dominate
Yeah,
you.
exactly. That's the key.
Well said, Bob.
Yeah.
Ego is not a bad thing.
No,
It's perceived as bad, right?
Right.
It's I would call ego is the result of survival. So
Sure.
if you don't have an ego, you don't survive. You know, Animals or any living thing that does not have ego is going to die at that moment, because it's directly related with your survival instinct.
yeah,
Ego is a word that is being misunderstood a lot.
Yep.
In psychology, they say id, ego, and superego.
right,
That's what Sigmund Freud coins there.
right,
So when it's ego, it's the result of whatever you do is based on your ego. But if you're able to direct your actions, and if you put your ego at in your control, and when you are not directed by your ego, that's when the
right.
game starts.
That 100%. That's exactly right. And that's what I was saying, kind of working with it
Your
rather
higher
than
self's in
being
charge.
directed by it. When you almost tune in with it,
Yep.
and you're like
Mhm.
you're using it for a benefit, for a positive. Yeah, you might have an ego, but again, it's for the, I don't know what to say, you're trying to lift everybody up. You're trying to tune into that, and you feel that frequency, so you're like, I want to spread this. It's not just
Yep.
for me. That's the whole game, is can I make this infectious? Can I distribute this amongst everyone?
Yeah.
It's just, I've always kind of felt that way.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
and what part, VJ, when you left the U.S. and went back to India, was there a certain kind of like energy going back to India that even added to what you were experiencing
Yeah.
here? Because it seemed like you just kind of went for it. You were
Carried with
traveling,
them.
you were going to all these ancient
It's
temples,
fired up.
and you've continued those travels, and you've kind of built your life and your schedule and doing what you're doing now to continue that. So what part of it for you to get to that point where I'm going to set myself up so I can pursue these things? Once you got back to India, what changed or is still changing?
That's a good question, Mike. My priorities changed when I was in the US. People who come to the US from India, especially, they want to build up a career. They want to settle there, get a citizenship, get a job, make a lot of money, buy a big house, and show it off to everybody. That's how it works. That's how the cycle of commerce works for most people who
Right.
come to the dreamland.
Right.
So, but my perspective completely changed, and my things that I put in priority completely changed. I wanted to get out of this the vicious circle and go out and explore what I wanted to explore myself.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I wouldn't say it's impossible to do it in the US, but it's so systematic that people are caught in it.
Yeah.
Like if you want to buy milk, you go to a store and buy milk. But here, there's my neighbor who has cows, so I just give him my vessel. He fills it up with milk right in front of me and gives it to me. No pasteurization, nothing.
Oh
Right.
So
man.
it's like
Right.
a completely different system here,
Right.
which is more relaxing. I
Yep.
know it has its bad side here, like the pollution, noise pollution, those things. But you have that choice of being relaxed and calm, and you have the choice of exploring. You will find a lot of like-minded people. I wouldn't say I didn't find like-minded people there, but people who are able to feed me with more knowledge I could find here. Even though they speak different languages here, I was able to communicate with so many people who encouraged me. People don't just go alone and drink. They don't feel comfortable drinking alone.
Right.
If
Mm-hmm.
they have a friend along with them, it's fun for them, right? This is like that. When you find somebody who does the same thing, you feel more confident in what you're doing.
Absolutely.
So I wouldn't say I have friends doing it, but when I meet people who are doing it, I said to myself, I'm not crazy. I'm not doing this all alone. So there is this path where people are comfortably doing this, and this perspective is what I gathered when I was in the U.S. And I'm lucky to meet you, people like you, because I had a totally different perspective too before I came to the U.S. I didn't
Sure.
expect to find any people who are interested in spirituality and these kind of things.
Yeah.
I can
Um,
imagine if you're
right?
watching U.S. culture or the movies or television
Yeah.
shows coming out, it's like, that's not how a fair cross section of the U.S. populace even lives. But that's just what's
Exactly.
represented, right? So it's getting down, and seeing it for what it is, like you did. You got such a good perspective that, yeah, I'm sure it was shocking. It kind of makes sense now that when you came over, you did have this spiritual awakening because it took your perspective and shifted it.
Right.
And then while you were here being in that mode, you're kind of like your mind was opened, right? Like your perspective
Mhm.
was opened up just maybe from those cultural impacts that then spiritually led to you being even more aware when you went to these sites going, oh my gosh, like, why am I reacting this way? And again, it's really cool to kind of think like, unlocking our minds a little bit and putting them in the right perspective to be able to tap into those moments and be aware of them.
Yeah, just like you had an experience in Thailand, I
Hmm.
had an experience when I was 3.5 years old. I
Oh,
had a hard time explaining this to my parents and the rest of the family that
Hmm.
I had something like this. There is in my horoscope that I would become a sage. So my parents do not encourage these things. They don't
yeah.
want me to meditate. My father tried to teach me meditation, but my mother said no.
Hmm.
I don't want you to make your son a sage. I want him to get married, become a successful person in his life.
Hmm.
So I was like in a conflict between these two things.
Okay.
So the same experience happened to me when I was in the US. That could have probably happened because I was in one of these sites. I'm not sure what exactly the source is, but it was exploding, and that's when I decided to experience that more of that and explore more of that instead of doing what I was doing. And that changed the perspective of the US for me, because before that I thought, US is not a holy land. but in fact it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, I get it.
Especially
I get
you
it.
landing in
get it.
Ohio, where Ohio is specifically like the Ohio River Valley is just full of these weird, mysterious earthworks, and for you to land here is just interesting. You know, you could have went to
Right.
some place that, you know, Cincinnati is what, an hour away from Serpent Mound, less. So the
2 hours.
yeah, it's just incredible that you know you were able to, number one, find out about it. How did you even find out about Serpent Mound?
That's a good question. What brought that on your radar?
I was just plainly doing Google searches on historical sites.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
And this popped up, and it was so close to me.
Yeah,
And the moment I saw that, I knew I was going to be there.
yeah,
And that's going to be, doing some weird things to me.
yeah.
And the moment I was there, it did.
And
And
I will preface again. We met VJ through Terry and Thomas
Yes,
Johnson.
yes. That's probably
Terry
good to say
Rivera.
how we came into
And,
contact.
yeah, again,
with
if you
VJ.
haven't watched the episode 4 and
Yep,
5,
Tom's episode, check
Thomas
it out.
Johnson, we did an episode with him. Jeffrey Wilson.
Jeff
So
Wilson.
VJ knows a lot of the folks from
Right.
that we've had on the show,
Right.
and has been able to talk to them and connect with
Yeah.
a lot of people.
But that's how
as
we
a
met
part of
VJ
his-
too.
we
was
met VJ
through the event
through
at
Tom and Terry.
Terry's.
Yeah,
Right.
we did a virtual event, a live stream
Yeah.
for the Halloween. No, I'm sorry, summer solstice of 2020. It's like in the middle of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Virtual event, because usually they have these live events. VJ was one of the last speakers, and this massive storm came through, and the whole production was under this flimsy Walmart pop-up tent,
Getting
dude.
blown down.
And it came down so hard. I thought that tent was gonna blow away.
Looked like
we had
Lieutenant
tapestries
Dan.
hanging on the side.
Were you screaming into the wind? Yo,
Oh
never
man,
take this
my
tent.
our whole production, my laptop got soaked.
It was a deluge.
And then so we decided to take everything down and move
Yeah.
everything into the house with VJ. And it was the first time I think that you'd ever given a presentation and just killed it. We're like, who is this guy?
It's VJ. Yeah.
VJ had never, I don't think you had ever given a presentation.
Well, and at
like
the
that
time,
before.
VJ
He
had
just
a
murdered it.
VJ had a goatee. If you look at his
Yeah.
slate
Yeah.
on YouTube,
Yeah.
from it, he's
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's
He's
the,
been crushing it. He's
Yeah.
been at it. Like
so
that beard tells the road.
it
I
does.
understand it now.
Totally does.
I
If you look at our first
understand it.
interview with VJ, there is a maturation process of, you can see it. You
I
can
started
see it
growing
happen.
my beard in September when I started my new job. I haven't shaved it since fully.
Yeah.
So,
So
I get it.
shout out to Tom and Terry for introducing us to
Absolutely.
VJ. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's been again.
That's
you
the genesis.
went there, started going deep on all this research about connections with Serpent Mound and India.
Yeah.
And basically bringing that back to India and traveling to all these different places, which you've sent me some images, some beautiful photos that I kind of put together in just a little bit of a dex, but we can keep talking. But if we're kind of getting into
you want to throw through some
VJ's adventures,
photos? Yeah,
that he's
yeah.
had,
VJ, is that
VJ,
cool
would
with
you
you?
want to talk about some of your travels?
Sure, definitely. I've done some intense travel after I came back to India. I've been to all these important temples, Shiva temples in India.
Yeah.
There are 5 temples dedicated for Lord Shiva in South India, each for one energy. It's like earth, water, fire, space, and air. So I
Okay.
went to all of these temples. Yeah, it was an interesting experience going to these 5 elemental temples, and
That's like the movie, The
the
Fifth
temple that you,
That's
it's something like that.
so
Yeah.
weird.
It
That's
does.
just like that movie, representing the 5 elements
100%.
of life and what. Sorry to interrupt. I've never heard that before.
No,
that's
that's
really cool.
That's okay. So this ex, explanation of how this universe works through these 5 elements and how the universe is compiled with not beyond these 5 elements um, is what they are trying to represent. It is more of a science. It is not a spiritual or just a hysterical knowledge that you're trying to provide. So this science that we are learning right now, it's more of a materialistic science, I would call.
Mhm.
But the point and where the science that these people were trying to teach, it started at a different with a different goal, with a totally different destination to attain.
Right.
So that's where these things come into place. There are things that um, they're trying to communicate that we don't understand, just like how somebody with would not understand quantum physics.
Right.
We don't understand what they're trying to communicate because it's so complicated, it's so advanced.
Right.
And before
Just
the
goes
reset
by us.
happened, mhm,
Yeah.
we either try to understand it or we completely reject it because we don't understand it, and we just see the fancy side of it and just keep going, and we do not see what the actual picture is. So the reason I'm talking about these five elements is that because there are how the Hinduism works here with the five gods. There is Lord Shiva, Lord Goddess Parvati, there is Kala Bhairav, and there's Brahma and Vishnu. So these five gods, they are represented as as scientific icons. Where let me start in the reverse order. So for you, this existence that we are living on is, if you look at it in a wholesome perspective, these are the five things that you would see. There's nothing beyond those five. For you to live on this planet, you need these five things. I'm not talking about the essentials that you need. I'm talking about for the existence itself, for
Right.
you to be here,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
you need energy, right? And you need time. Without time, there's nothing, right? So
Right.
you need at least 1 second, 2 seconds for the existence to be there, and you need life to experience this. And without us, this universe is just going to be there, and we're not going to. There's no evidence of this universe, so we kind of witness it from a
Mm-hmm.
human perspective,
Right.
right? And where this comes from, all these existence comes from, it comes from nothingness. So, and the whole thing is created and presented for us, right? So I'll go back and explain these five things. So the nothingness is the primary thing because everything comes from the nothingness. That would we would call as Lord Shiva. Okay.
Okay.
The reason Lord Parvati is called as Shakti, Shakti directly means energy, right? So the nothingness became something because of the energy in it. Just like how the Big Bang
Yeah.
was nothing,
Right.
there was energy inside it which made it explode.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what did the creation. The god of creation is Brahma. So these two resulted, Shiva and Parvati, resulted in Brahma, the creation. And all these three required a witness, which is Vishnu. Vishnu is the god of life. You would see the different forms of life when they try to represent Vishnu. And for all these four to happen, you need time, which is Kala Bhairav. Kala means time. These are the five major gods in Hinduism.
Okay.
And if you see the creation, this creation is comprised of only five things. That is the earth, air, fire, water, and cosmos. That's what they are trying to represent here. This is the idea of trying to understand Hinduism in a scientific angle.
Right.
And that's why you go to temple.
Hmm.
You get the knowledge from there. This is
Okay.
the knowledge you derive from there. And if you're trying to understand what is this place, what am I doing here, this is where you start.
Mm.
Start with the basics.
So tuning into the
Exactly.
temple's frequency itself is actually teaching you. It's literally like a physical library that you can tune into. And I mean, if you looked at we put up an image of a couple of the temples that you went to, and it does feel like it's, being there could give off a massive frequency. It's almost like code, the glyphs and the imagery. And can you talk about, I don't know if you can see the photos of the temple or which temple is this. Um, if you can see those
I don't know
back
if that's
in
being shot back
your
this way or not.
monitor.
This is Tiruvannamalai temple. I see the picture.
Oh, okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
cool.
This is
Perfect.
right. So this temple is dedicated to the fire form of Lord Shiva, they say, and absolutely amazing place. You I want you guys to come here and experience it yourself.
Would love
So
to.
you know I'm not lying.
Oh no, we've been
Don't tempt
talking
me.
for too long
Don't
about
tempt
coming
me.
to India. We're gonna make it happen. Strange Road's going to India. Mark
My
my
wife's
words.
watching. She's already
Right.
planning the trip, so
All right.
we'll see you soon.
So it's a personal experience you would gather. It's not something that comes out of communication. I cannot communicate the frequency into you.
Right.
It's for
Right.
you to come here and experience, just like your life. How much ever I explain my life to you, you're not going to get it because
Right.
it's your life. You lead your life, I live my life.
Great point.
This whole experience is going to be the same. You come here and experience this for yourself.
I'd love to. Yeah.
And right, and this is only one of those temples that I visited. It has a history, and the history goes back to like 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and even beyond that.
Wow.
These letters that you see there, the letters that is written on the culvert, those are Tamil letters,
Okay.
and those letters they were written in the later part of the time when the king decided to record the construction, the renovation of the temple. But what was there before the renovation was happened? That's a big history.
Hmm.
And the actual temple, I visited this temple. I could see that the actual temple was very small. It's not as big as what you see now. And the kings decided to glorify the temple, so they built huge construction around the temple. So inside the temple, there's no cameras allowed, so I wasn't able to take pictures of that.
No.
So inside is where you actually feel the energy. If you
Right.
go inside, sit inside there, it's going to throw some
Wow.
big energy on you, and you might not be able to handle that for some time. And by the time you come out, you know you've been attacked by a big positive energy, and
It's
that's
life
when
changing.
absolutely life
Yeah. It's
changing. I
life.
advise people that, yeah, people here go to temple, worship God, ask for money, ask for a good career, and come back. They give money, saying, "Hey, we are making a transaction here. I give you money, you give me this." That's how worshiping is done. I
Mm-hmm.
strongly advise people not to do that.
Right.
You're
Mm.
not here to make a transaction here.
Right.
Your worship should not be transactional.
Right.
You should manifest what you want to do, what you want to happen in your life, and the manifestation will happen through this frequency. So I would, if I see somebody, I would stop them, ask them to sit and meditate there. It isn't a custom that when you visit a temple, you sit quietly for some time after finishing whatever you do in the temple. You go around, visit, see all the gods, pray your prayers, and then come back. It's good for people to sit down calmly without doing anything,
Mm-hmm.
but sitting down calmly has been mistaken. It is not sitting down calmly. It is for people to sit and meditate there.
Mm-hmm.
Very less people do that. Very less people actually know that. That's when the magic happens. There's a difference between I'm sitting and meditating on a rock and sitting and meditating inside this giant machine
Yeah.
specifically made for meditation.
Wow.
The more you sit there, the more light you see, the more energy you feel, the more things that would happen post the meditation. The moment you come out, you will feel that you're kind of ready for doing something great.
Wow. We gotta go.
And
Appalachian Intelligence said, "Weird fam trip to India."
I love it. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
everybody, let's go.
Heck yeah.
Bert and Kenneth, the whole crew, all the
Yeah. I think my wife was also making a point to your lunar connection to how it affects us.
Justin
because
Lamb.
when we worked,
go.
when I worked in the hospital, I know that she still does. On full moons, you knew it was real as a nurse because your patients would just.
right,
It was like you thought it was like a joke. Like, did somebody plan this?
Yeah.
But just the weirdest stuff would happen when a full moon would come out.
Yeah.
But being inside those buildings, that's why I wonder if it is kind of a residual resonance, if it was because that place in general is so holy. How do you think they come about? Do they begin because there's a significance to the site, or say there was a settlement there that put the significance to the site? How do you view that? Is there
Is it ley lines?
multiple angles to it? Because
Yeah.
I would say where the church was built back in my hometown
It's just
doesn't hold any
vacant lawn,
significance
yeah.
to the energy in the earth, but
Maybe
older
not,
temples
maybe.
and structures, I assume some of them were because somebody went, you know what, there is something going on here. We should put up shop here. and then there were other ones that were just, you know, coincidentally in distance, or you had
Right.
of a community to build one, and everybody come together and have worship and build that community. But I don't know. Do you have a feeling on that, VJ? Is there, you know, especially to ancient temple sites or holy sites, do you find a lot of times that when you're there is an energy aspect to them?
All of them.
Absolutely. I would give you a little example of what I felt when I was in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Not in an ancient site. It this observation happened in my home. I was in my home and I was trying to sleep. In India, you can't sleep with your head directing the north.
Hmm.
Oh, okay.
Your parents won't allow you to sleep like that.
Can I
They'll
can
say,
I
don't
ask
keep your head
why?
in the north.
Can I ask why?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yes, there is physics coming into place now. We all know that Earth is a magnet. It's a giant magnet. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we are also magnets.
Mm-hmm.
So, what happens to like poles? Like poles repel each other.
That's interesting.
That's physics.
I'm
Right.
gonna have to go home and change
North
my
and
bed.
north repels.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to change the position of my
There's a
bed.
problem there.
Yeah.
There is a problem there. That's what I observed when I was in the US. None of these houses are aligned to directions because the people who build it, they don't care about directions. They just build it. I kind of ended up sleeping diagonally inside my bedroom because I wanted to keep my head in the east
Wow.
because the house is not aligned to the east.
Yeah.
You
Right.
won't find any houses in India that are not aligned to direction.
Hmm.
The very first time they would buy a land, the very first question would be, what is the facing of the land? Is it north facing, south facing, east facing, or west facing?
Well, can I
East
say
facing is good.
can I
North-
say to that? I think maybe why we have a different directional pattern from what Tom explained was maybe the Masonic pattern of laying out homes that did face north, south, east, west because of the trapping of energy. Don't you remember him saying that?
We talked
Like
about
the
a lot of
the Masons and how they laid out homes, and which
In
would
old-
make a lot of
old
sense.
towns. Yeah.
Right, is they all faced north, south, east, west, right? Like all of the beds point north. My parents' bed still points
Probably
north.
back
like,
then they were still tuned into this stuff, but now modern day like suburbs, it's just like here's a plot of land.
Right.
plop it
Now they
down.
don't care, but I'm saying
Yeah.
older homes in the U.S. have
Yeah.
a very abstract pattern compared to that, but I don't know if
Washington,
it's
D.C..
because, right,
Yeah,
But
which
if
we
that's
talked about.
if that's based off of the fact that they were doing the Masonic build versus, you know, facing towards the east and having your head that way. I don't know. I don't know if that's just something that was in the U.S. because of that influence from the Masons.
It definitely is.
You're right about that too. A
mystery
lot of
schools.
knowledge was there 200 or 300 years ago, even in the US. For example, you would see people well witching for water. There's
Right.
something called well witching where you go out
Dowsing
with a stick
rods.
and find out where the water.
Yeah,
Yeah,
dowsing
dowsing
rods.
rods.
Mm-hmm.
hmm So this was there. But I heard about people doing that 200 years ago in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
This knowledge has went from India to Persia to Europe and then to the people in English. They knew about it when they carried on this practice even when they came to the U.S.
Okay.
This kind of knowledge has been lost in the last 100 years, I would say.
Yeah.
And you're right, old buildings, they might have been constructed aligning with the directions, but these days they don't care about it. You
Yeah.
will see constructions made randomly, diagonally, anyhow
Right.
they want,
Fair
just for the
point.
convenience of where they can find the land and
Yeah.
fit a building into
Yeah.
that.
Plop it down.
So-
Let's go.
Yeah. What is the optimal direction to sleep? I just want to know that. So if I
Face
do
east.
change my bed, you said face east.
East,
Yeah.
Okay.
east is the best direction to keep your head in.
God,
I'm gonna
try
East
that out.
west. So you keep your head in the east and
To rearrange
leg
my
in
whole
the west.
bedroom tonight. Damn it,
That's what I
DJ. What have you done? My wife's gonna be
I'm not gonna
pissed.
get any sleep tonight, but tomorrow night's gonna be great.
Oh man, that's
I
great.
love it. Sorry.
Absolutely. So, yeah, these constructions, if you don't experience something like this in your church, and if you experience something like this in a temple, this is where the construction science starts from.
Mm-hmm.
This is getting more scientific, like where these temples are placed. They're not built on random places.
Okay.
Specific geomagnetical points have been selected building these temples.
Okay.
So if you connect all these temples, you will end up forming a grid of energy across the earth.
A circuit
So these
board,
temples,
almost.
I'm currently working with somebody on trying to figure out the origin of temple building, like why a temple would be built. And I figured out five types of temples till now, where I was with a tribe called Irulas. They have a different style of building temple. These tribes, they don't come with the civilization yet. They are experts in snake catching. They still hunt and eat. So they worship um, uh, this, what do you call this, white ants, the termites.
Hmm.
They build a house. I don't know what they
Okay.
call them. That's what they worship. They consider that part to be fertile because termites do not build their home on a non fertile place. If a termite builds its home, it is having water, running water beneath it.
Hmm.
So it means that it's a fertile land and you can live around it. That's the science behind it. So that's temple for them. The termites' home is the temple for them, and they have their houses around it. So
Oh,
that's how these people build their temple.
Hmm.
So that's their style of figuring out where they should live, and they establish from there. They establish their colony from there. So if you go back to figuring out how these temples were built, you'll find these people who are experts in finding geomagnetic magnetic locations on Earth.
right,
These people just know by knowledge. They know just if they walk into a space, they would say, "This is where you have to build the temple."
right, right.
That's the reason you would see a lot of temples are built in places where you cannot find granite. They would bring granite from like
Right.
300 miles away.
Yeah. So
Why
many
can't they just build it
places.
in the place where they find granite?
Right.
You just want to build a building. Why can't you just take your whole construction?
Because
They
they're
wouldn't
trying
do
to
that
amplify
because
Yeah.
that
they
area.
Right.
They're trying
Well,
to turn it
exactly.
on.
Stonehenge, those stones came from
Exactly.
like Wales,
A lot of different
like
instances
100 miles away or something insane.
up at Pumapunku in
Yeah.
Bolivia. I mean, there's no stones, no trees to roll them over. I don't know how they did it.
Over the mountains.
Yeah.
And they're like 50, like 500-ton stones in
Highest
some cases.
elevated lake in the world. Yeah, I mean, it's up there.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, that's wild.
I'm glad you brought up this Stonehenge. Stonehenge, it's not the only construction site that looks, in that manner.
Yep.
There are other places too. You'll find a similarity between Göbekli Tepe and Stonehenge too.
Yep.
Okay.
And this
Karnak.
goes back to many thousand years, probably around 100,000 years, because they're called canes, and humans have this behavior of this is another type of temple that I'm talking about. So the Stonehenge or the Göbekli Tepe is a more complicated version of these canes.
Mm.
I visited one cane after I came back, one of those places that I traveled to. It's very near from my place. It's like most of the thing is destroyed. They don't take care of it. It's it's so old. It's from like 20,000 years ago. This cane is like built with stones that are placed in a particular manner. And this construction from 100,000 years ago, it has the same blueprint of the Stonehenge. It has the
Mm.
same blueprint of Göbekli Tepe. They've been following this science for many thousand years. This is another type of temple.
Yep.
And like I mentioned before, in like most interviews, you would find temples on river bends, like
Right.
exactly where the
Yep.
river bend is.
Serpent Mound.
Almost all of the temples, all of the pyramids around the world, and interestingly, all of the government buildings, like parliaments, recently built, like 100 years ago, 50 years ago, even construction that are being done now, they're all built right across this, not across, right by the river bend.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I wonder
you know, this,
I wonder what the do you have a rationale for why? Why that is what the
Well,
reason?
travel, number one, unloading.
But why at a
pushing
river
barges,
bend? I get a river, but why at the bend of the
The
river?
confluence of here in
No,
Columbus.
not a
you know what I mean?
confluence. The bend of the river. Right?
Yeah,
That's what you're
exactly.
saying. Where
I'll
the
tell you why.
yeah,
Yeah, let's hear it.
I got to know this.
Imagine this temple as an instrument.
Yeah. Okay.
It's a device.
Yeah.
And where does it get power from?
From the water.
Where do you see the plug? Exactly.
So that river bend is
From
kind of
running
like
water.
splitting the water. Like you can take a stream of water, and if you just split that, you actually are separating. You can generate a small amount of power just from doing that in your home, even with your tap
Pulls
of
it in.
water. If you split it. So at a river bend, I'm
Exactly. So
thinking
if you-
there's an impact that creates an energy.
Exactly. The bend of the river has more current than a regular straight spot. So, a good example for this would be the pyramids. So what you see on the top, the pyramids, they are only part of the whole construction.
Mm-hmm.
What's beneath the pyramid,
Crazy.
beneath the sand, is the main part.
Yep.
That's the actual part of the device.
Right.
Right.
So if you see a light bulb, you see the glowing part. That's only a part. The actual place where it gets its electricity from,
Yeah.
and it transmits and regulates that electricity to the tungsten. That's more important than the burning part, right?
Right.
So if you see these pyramids, they have running water coming inside to the pyramids, to the bottom of the
Yep.
of the whole construction, and that has you know regulated the energy that the pyramid needs, and it has done a lot of things, and that's the science I'm talking about. So all of these temples, including this temple that I was, all these temples that I visited, all of them, no exceptions, they're all right beside a riverbed.
Hmm.
Wow.
Well, it's
Some
think-
of these places you wouldn't find a river, but you would see that there is traces of river there from many thousand years ago.
It dried up.
Interestingly, yeah, you can relate and find out what the actual age of that temple is by geological surveys, conducting geological surveys to find out how old the river was.
Right.
Sure.
So if you know when it dried up, this temple was built before it dried up, when it was a fertile river.
Right.
Mhm.
Some of these data numbers are mind blowing because there's a construction site. It's called Kailasa Temple. It's a very interesting place. Everybody should come and visit the place because this temple was built from upside down. It was not built from
Oh,
down up.
I've heard about this place.
You might have heard about it, right?
Mhm.
This temple has a river running right beside it, but this river is not there anymore. And I'm trying to figure out what the age of this river is, like when it dried up. And there are interesting numbers coming up. 15,000 to 13,000 years.
Wow.
That means that the temple could be much older than what it is
Right.
Right.
told to be as.
Well, that's a good
So,
indicator to
it's
start
connecting to
following.
Man.
To have that as a thread to pull on to go, well, I know water's important. When was water last running here? And you could look at, different sites
100%.
all over. But
They don't use geology enough.
Well, it made me think
you
when he
know,
was saying
dating
about
sites.
the engineering underground of the pyramids, made me think if I watched an entire show about just Machu Picchu and the engineering put into the ground.
There's always tunnels and weird
They
chambers.
did all of the
always.
layers of the soil.
Yeah, like
They dug down, put rocks, sand. So if there was
Foundation.
water, because they're at a high peak,
Yep.
and they made these terraces,
Right.
what if you get heavy rainfall, which, apparently that was a very big concern at that time.
They're running the water all through that place.
So it soaks in the ground too, and
Yeah.
it doesn't erode and
just
toss them off the
vibrates that.
side of the mountain. But it goes back to what he's saying about the pyramids and how, what we see on the surface, we go, oh, well, okay, that's a very nice geometrical shape. Cool, good job, ancients that were building shapes. We don't get
It's for a
any,
reason.
it's that judging the book by the cover deal of, oh, they were tombs for no, there was no bodies in these,
Yeah.
What were they using them for? Why are they building these massive structures if it's not for the pharaoh and his queen? It doesn't make sense.
No. None
And it's also interesting that they haven't explored more than 30% of the Great Pyramid.
Oh, I mean, the
How?
cave systems are
What?
That's 2% of the.
Yeah.
Just the tunnels underneath the Great Pyramid. They're just now getting robots and stuff in there secretly, and I don't think they want to talk about what's underneath the pyramid.
This is the
There's
longest
lots
movie
of-
ever.
There's so
Come
many hidden
on.
chambers and weird things going
Well,
on that they
Edgar
will
Casey,
not
the
disclose.
paw of the Sphinx, and
The right paw of the Sphinx. I mean,
the
we talked to
history of humankind and the knowledge of everything, kind of like the original safety vault of
Right.
history.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's wild.
It's
It's frustrating.
This, talking about this will lead to more topics.
yeah.
I would keep talking about it. But since you asked, like, what my experience is about visiting these temples, you can't visit what's beneath a pyramid.
Yeah.
But
Closed off.
I was lucky to visit what's beneath a temple.
Oh.
Oh,
It's a huge temple, and there are tunnels in every temple that you see there.
Wow.
You cannot access these tunnels; they are locked with gate.
yeah.
Every temple has sub temples around it, like 2 kilometers away, 3 kilometers away. you would find a lot of temples. All these are connected. So if you go to
Mm-hmm.
Chillicothe, you would find the Hopewell Cultural National Park. That's not the only site.
Yep.
Just a few miles away, there is Saip
Yep.
earthwork, and there are
Right.
a few other earthworks too that they don't expose. There is a reason
Hopeton.
that they have built the prison, the correction center, right in front of
Yeah.
the this spot.
And
There's something big hiding beneath
well,
the correction
the
facility.
Army Corps of Engineers is right next door. VJ, I've never thought about this.
Next to what?
Like
Where?
right next
The
to the
site?
Hopewell, the Hopewell
Hopewell.
enclosure that everybody knows is really famous, where there's a bunch of conical mounds all together in
yeah.
this beautifully enclosed square.
Yeah.
VJ's saying that's just one part of this big Hopewell huge temple complex that spans all over. But right next to the main one, is Army Corps of Engineers, right on the river.
Hmm.
What's going on? I mean, all those sites are right on the Scioto River, all up and down it.
Never.
And then there's a huge prison. Continue
never thought
right
about
across
that.
the road.
Yeah.
Let's dig into this because
There you go. Get on the trail, Mikey.
I'm on. All right, VJ, sorry to interrupt.
People, no, you're good. So people who start their research about these mounds, they're sitting on one small, very tiny piece of this big puzzle, and they think that's it. It's not it. It's a it's a very huge exploration. It would take more than a lifetime to explore that and figure
Right.
out what it is.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's when I dropped going to these actual places, and I went back to figuring out what the blueprint of this is,
Okay.
what was the idea behind building it, and I started exploring sacred texts that led to this. That's when I met some interesting people. And the very first question that I had when I walked into this Hopewell Cultural National Park, I wanted to see it from an aerial perspective. So I took some pictures of it, and I knew it was a Hindu temple.
Hmm.
The moment I saw it, I knew it was a Hindu temple because the previous time that I visited the Serpent Mount, I sounded crazy to my wife when I said I wanted to visit Serpent Mount for the second time. She's like, "Why do you want to go back there? What's there to see? There's nothing to see there." I visited that place more than 6 times.
Wow.
I
Yeah.
keep visiting that place
Yeah.
because I keep gathering vibrations, information, so many things from there. So I don't want to miss it. Nobody comes. It doesn't matter. I just go alone.
Yeah.
I sit there. I know I'm going to gain some kind of information from there. This serpent mound was not a snake at all. So in my first presentation, I mentioned that it is a Kundalini yoga. They have mentioned the Kundalini serpent in Serpent Mound, not a snake, not a regular snake that you see crossing by the road. But there was mixed reactions to that. Uh, Nobody was ready to accept an Indian idea in the U.S.
Right.
many thousand years ago.
Right.
You don't see the connection at all.
Right.
That's when I actually started digging up. So I knew it was this, and I had to provide valid resources, valid evidences for people not to get convinced, but to believe what it is.
Right.
And that's when the story started. And me visiting temples here in India, they are a result of that. Now, this is not my primary area of interest at all. Temple architecture, that's not me. I'm more of exploring my mind, the human mind, and the universe.
Yeah.
But these are kind of supporting evidences for me. So they provide a solid support to me when I explore this. So I can't ignore it and say I'm going to just explore this and not this because they're all interconnected. So you can't just sit and study physics from your first grade. You have to study mathematics. You have to study English to be able to communicate it.
Right.
You have to study geography to apply the physics on the earth. So you'll have to have multiple subjects inculcated to you so you can provide a wholesome idea to your next generation. That's how the science works, and that's how it worked for me too. And the moment I started digging into this, gracefully, like luckily, everything started to fall in place. Everybody started to fall in place. Like I met Mikey, I met few people from there. I met so many people from India. And yesterday was like almost a step ahead for me because of the time confusion we had. I thought this live program was
Yeah,
going to be happening yesterday, and Mike said, "Hey, Bob, relax. It's not today; it's tomorrow."
I get it.
So I
I
wanted to
get it.
make use of this. Mhm.
That's
I
so
wanted to
funny.
make use of this 24 hours that I got in between.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I went and met an expert. This expert, I've just seen him on videos, and I've never actually uh, talked to him or anything. I just called him the day before. He's fighting cancer right now. He
Oh,
has tongue
wow.
cancer. He can't speak well. But the moment I said I want to meet you, he said, "Come over, meet me."
That's
I met
awesome.
him, and he's a very famous person in the Tamil community because
There he is.
he, to start with, he has found over 6,000 Tamil words all across the world, all across the entire planet. And he said that this language has connected people from different cultures all together, providing so much information, and providing so much, things and knowledge and education that you need.
Mm-hmm.
And there has been continuous trade communication, continuous cultural communication that has been happening for so long. And I can't, not believe him because that's what I saw. When I saw a Hindu temple construction in the US, I
Right.
know I was right. Yeah. So I wanted to talk to him. And all these researches that I did, he said, like, you just hit the tip of the iceberg.
Wow.
There is a lot to it.
Yeah.
And the information that he provided to me in like the 3 hour conversation that we had, it it was amazing
Wow.
because there are people, so many people who have researched on this, not just him or me. There are people who have worked on this before.
Right.
And he
Mm-hmm.
handed over a couple of books to me,
Right.
and he said, "These are the books that are going to be a guide if you want to research about the American Indian connection."
Wow.
So I've seen this connection all over the world.
Sure.
The reason that
Yeah,
I'm
you've been on it,
highlighting
man.
the Mhm.
Yeah, you've been on it.
The reason I'm highlighting the US connection is because you're from the US. You will find it interesting if I'm presenting information from the
Right.
US. You wouldn't find it interesting if I'm presenting information from Turkey or Russia or somewhere else.
Right.
But
Rings a little bit
it's all there.
closer to home because
Sure.
it's hitting
Correct.
us a little bit
Uh-huh.
more tangibly.
Yeah,
And that's why it's resonating in India
exactly.
too. And VJ's blowing up on all these YouTube
Right.
channels over in India. Real quick, VJ, can you just, for our listeners that again haven't maybe saw the previous episode, can you talk about the Tamil language and some of the significance of the story? Maybe just like surmise what Tamil is, and for our listeners at home on the live stream.
Kind of the origin of it and where it comes from, you mean?
Yeah, just some background. We're getting into this gentleman. I just want everybody to know
Sure.
about it because it's fascinating,
Yeah.
the language.
He was telling me about I was listening to the old episode earlier today, so I was listening about it, but I found it fascinating.
If you do a Google search trying to figure out what is the oldest language in the world,
Yeah.
you would have some languages pop up for you. So there would be a tie between Tamil and Sanskrit. So you're trying to figure out which is the oldest language.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they are different languages because the researches that I did about Tamil, uh, it's pointing out to another archaic language, which is the source of the actual Tamil that we're learning now, or which is the source of the actual Sanskrit that we are learning now. So it goes back to Sumerian language, which is the oldest dead language in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So to start with, Tamil, so prominent people have spoken about it. A paranormal researcher called Alex Collier, his video became so viral in the Tamil community because he mentioned that Tamil is the oldest language in the world, and we all spoke that language across the world. We spoke the same language, just like how it's mentioned in the Bible, the Tower of Babel. Everybody spoke the same
Oh,
same
wow.
language, and the human community became so powerful. And he says Tamil is the language that we all spoke.
Wow.
That's to start with. That's
That's
Lex
so
Collier.
cool.
And if you go back,
Wow.
if you go back, there is a couple of academics who have mentioned that Sumerian is the archaic version of Tamil,
Oh.
and Sumerian is like the source of all the holy books that we
Right.
have.
Right.
It's the source of the Old Testament and Bible. If you try, if you ever wanted to question, like, who gave information about Adam and Eve,
Right.
like, where did this information come from?
Right.
If you do a research on that, it'll direct you to the Sumerian tablets.
Mm-hmm.
That's where Adam and
Adamu.
Eve story came from.
That's
Adamu.
wild.
Yeah, it's not a Christian story at all.
No.
Yeah.
It's pre-Christian story, and it's pre-Abrahamic stories that
Yeah.
come from tablets, clay tablets that are many thousand years old. We're completely not able to figure out how much old they are. They
Yeah.
could be much older than what people say they are. But and this Loganathan, Dr. Loganathan, he says that he's been researching on Sumerian language for over 25 years. He's not just a linguist; he's also a mathematical genius. So he has done his research on how mathematics applies in language and in human mind and how it affects the human behavior.
Right.
It's a very interesting topic for me as as a student of psychology. But his contribution to this linguist side, he says this language is the oldest language.
Hmm.
And there is another interesting researcher called Asko Parpolu. He's a Finnish Indologist. He has done research on the Indus Valley civilization. And interestingly enough, he has said that Indus Valley civilization is Tamil civilization.
Wow.
So, and you will find Indus Valley inscriptions in Easter Island, which is like no way geographically related to Indus Valley civilization at all. It's like many thousand miles away.
Oh yeah.
Easter Island is a ghost island sitting in nowhere in
Yeah.
the Pacific Ocean. And you would find the same inscriptions, just like the Indus Valley civilization, which is somewhere in the middle of Asia, in Easter Island. So it raises big questions on how this language got there.
Wow.
And people in the Easter Island, they call it Rongo Rongo. They don't know where this language came from, and they are not able to decode any of that language
What?
at all.
That's so wild.
Wow.
That's so wild. After
So-
watching that documentary last night about the guy thinking that life originated from Easter Island because of his research.
There you go, dude.
That's
We were just talking about that earlier
very
today.
wild.
Yeah.
I had a question, VJ. You were recently with kind of someone that was obviously giving you information, right? Meeting with is it Balu, or how do you say the last name?
Yes.
Balu.
His name is Orissa Balu.
There you go. Just from the perspective of you're giving us all this information, how nice is it when you get that chance to go speak with someone where you're on the receiving
He was
end?
feeling like
or-
we're feeling right now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I've had that experience before
Yeah.
where I feel like I'm the only one giving, and I'm other people. I'm like, can you give me? I want some back too. I need some as well. Do you know what I mean? You can't just give, and not refresh yourself and have those moments to kind of charge your spirit and soul back up as well, and get that information from somebody that's further down the road or had a different experience as well. Is that what you've kind of found?
Imagine your kid walking up to you and saying, with a lot of surprise and a lot of excitement, saying, "Hey, Dad, this is A, this is B. Do you know this A
Yeah.
and B?" And you're like, "Okay."
Yeah. I
That's
already
the
know
kind of
A and B.
experience I had when I was talking to him. I
Oh,
was like
man.
telling him, "This is what I did, and this is what I did." And
Right.
he was like watching everything, and I said, "Stop right there. Okay, read these 2 books." And I got tons of information. And
That's
he like
awesome.
poured in information on him. He
Right.
sent me a couple of messages, and I had to go through those messages for an hour to understand
Yeah.
the connections.
That's so great.
It was like he said, you started your this research journey well, but people have gone way ahead. Like I've gone way ahead, he said, and I'll be glad to share all the knowledge with you. And
That's great.
he's a very down to earth person.
Yeah.
Too. But it's more of a teacher student thing that
Absolutely.
happened in this subject, I would say. So these 2 books, if you want to show that up on
Yeah.
on
Did you
screen,
want to
right?
talk about Lewis Henry Morgan first or the books? Or Lewis Henry
Sure,
Morgan
definitely that.
is because I have an image up of
Yeah.
Lewis, and then from there it kind of goes through the 2 books that you were talking about. But I know you wanted to talk about this gentleman who back in the 1800s, I'll let you kind of take away,
Yeah.
did research on Tamar.
Yeah. Lewis is a very interesting anthropologist, I brought this gentleman up, we should understand that not just people from Asia or Europe have um, found this connection. He is an American anthropologist.
Yeah.
He lived in the U.S., but yet when he was researching on the Native Americans, the American Indians, he found out that they are directly connected with the Indians that lived in South India,
Hmm.
and that should be promising for somebody who wants to believe this connection,
Right.
Right.
because it's from, yeah, between the U.S. and India, which has been established by an American. And you know, he has found, since he is an anthropologist, he has not found just archaeological evidences, but more of what anthropologists do. It's the human behavior and how the community works, how the society works, those kind of things that he researched on. He
Right.
found that the particular way on how the society the society is formed, the family is formed in the Native American community. It is the same as in the South Indian communities as well.
That's
Wow.
interesting.
And yeah, for a regular person, it's nothing. They could just say that group of humans behaving the same way, it's nothing. But in an anthropological view, it is a great similarity, because
Right.
that's not how humans acted in the rest of the world.
Right.
So
Mm-hmm.
nomads in Siberia, nomads in Mongolia did not act that way. They had a totally a different pattern of family, pattern of society, and but these two were so similar. He found out so much similarity in them, and that's what led him to strongly propose the idea that the Indians were closely related to the South Indians. The American Indians were related to the
Yeah.
South Indians.
Yeah.
So people who just don't want to believe an Indian guy sitting and saying that, hey, we are all connected, they should go look at his research, because he's an American who has researched on this. Luckily, he had a peer working in India at that time, so he had just communicated with him and asked,
Hmm.
hey, I have done some research, I found some similarity to this. Can you dig it up more and provide me more information? This gentleman from India provided so much information for him,
Hmm.
and they made a connection and established this idea there.
Wow.
So, you know,
Wow.
again, I'm proposing this to you because you're from the U.S.,
Right.
and there's your forefather
Right.
sitting there,
Right.
who has done research on
Doing the
this.
work.
You can go out and, yeah,
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's so great. Let me flip here.
Mhm.
Yeah. What's the other one? we
Um,
got?
Oh, I went the wrong way. Sorry. The next one is like VJ was talking about these two books here. There we go.
Oh, Hindu American.
And this book is very interesting, and it's written in English as well. You can go and purchase this. I looked it up before we went on. VJ, if you want to talk a little bit about this, if you can see that image.
Well, honestly, I haven't read this book because I received them yesterday.
This is from the
I
guy,
wished I had received it before.
but he talked a little bit about some of the things in this book. Is that right?
Exactly. So he said that his all the researches that he has done, he was able to back it up with this book, because
Okay.
somebody already has worked on this idea and established uh, the whole idea and compiled the ideas into a book. He strongly suggested that I read this book, so
Yeah, I'll
I
be
will
reading it
gain
too.
more and more information on this. So I see some connections here. Regularly, I talk about this: religious connections, language connections, cultural connections,
Mm-hmm.
and geographical connections too. So, but he said that you would find more connections than what I gained through my researches.
Yeah.
So I'm yet to read this book. I'll definitely talk about this. I strongly suggest people from the U.S. to read this book and understand what's really going on with the sacred sites
Right. And
in
this is
the
by
USA.
Chandran Lal. Am I saying that right?
Mhm.
Chatman, the
So,
author.
yeah, I think his name is Shaman Lao.
Shaman.
Okay. So yeah, check that out, guys.
Very
It's
cool.
awesome.
And then here is the other book that this gentleman. We're just gonna kind of like talk about that really quick because I know this one's kind of interesting from what you were saying on the phone.
Yeah, this is another book I'm very excited to read now. So this book is those texts that is written there. It says South Indian Sora. I'm sorry, South American Soras is what it says. So Soras are kings, very prominent civilization in South India. They had their empire extended all the way up to Indonesia from South India. They had the biggest uh, fleet of ships in the whole world. World has never seen such a big fleet of ships ever before. And he conquered almost all of the Indian subcontinent, like Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia. You would still see his coins, his temples, his architecture, the language, history, and
Wow.
everything in all of the subcontinent. And this author of this book, he proposed that it is the Soras that had lived in South America too, because this brings up an interesting topic, like how we believe that people from the Europe crossed the Atlantic Ocean and reached the U.S. continent.
Right.
Orisabalo I met yesterday, he backed me up when I said there has been a lot of trade and communication happening on the other side in the Pacific Ocean from Asia to the U.S. continents. Pacific Ocean is not just water. There are a lot of tiny islands you will see
Right.
between the U.S. continent and that. These tiny islands, they are reminiscent of a bigger part of a land. There's a theory called a land of Mu or island of Mu,
Mm-hmm.
Mu for Mu. So this it's been rejected by the people who said that the Bering Strait is true,
Lemuria.
and and that's where the clue lies. So there's been a lot of, I would say, sailing happening between these two pieces of lands through Pacific Ocean,
Yeah.
and even after the land sunk, this island of Mu, it is said to have been sunk in a short span of time. And even after it sunk, what do you see? The Hawaii and Easter Island and
Mm-hmm.
Cook Islands, many of these Fiji and all of these islands that you see there in the
Right.
Pacific Ocean, they are just the tip of a big piece of land. They say that's why the Easter Island, in like nowhere in the middle of the ocean, has so much construction on it. Like people who are they? Why would they build
Right.
this
How'd you
on a
get
little
there?
island?
Right. How'd you get there? Why?
No,
Why there?
It's a high point of
why
movement.
there?
Maybe
Right?
they were just sailing and they got really tired and they're like, you know what? Screw it.
We're
We're
done.
staying. This is as far as we're going. I mean, that's the only thing I can think of because
Or
otherwise it doesn't make
it
sense,
was a
right?
rest stop on the way to Peru and the Yucatan and
Yeah, maybe they were like
you
the
know,
first B&B.
right,
Stop
Yes.
in.
the outer region
Yeah.
B&B.
Well, I
That
mean,
brings up another interesting topic too. So imagine this Easter Island as a tip of a mountain.
Right. It's a
okay.
high
People
point.
climbed all the way up a mountain, which is a sacred site,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest of the land is now under the ocean. So the tip is what you see, and you think it's an island. It's not an island.
That's okay. That's
Yep.
interesting.
It's the high point.
I did not think of it that way.
Because one of those styles of building temples um, is on top of the mountain.
Right. Right.
Like Machu
Right.
Picchu.
So Machu Picchu, for example, and most of the Hindu temples, like you will see a lot of Hindu temples built
Right.
on top of the mountain too.
Buddhist
Uh,
monasteries and
Right.
yeah, way
mhm.
up on mountain peaks and very treacherous and well, you're higher to the power.
Psychologically, it's probably it's like out of a fear of the flood too.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, yeah, there is a theory that says that people only lived on mountains at one point. There were no fields, there were no plains, nothing, and all the
Oh.
people who lived on mountains, they survived there. And once the water receded, the temperature became good, and the water froze on the North Pole and the South Pole. That's when the water level receded in the oceans. That's when people were able to climb down from the mountains to the plains and start agriculture. That is a course of human evolution, because
Absolutely.
in Tamil, yeah, in Tamil, there is like five types of lands. The one land is mountain, it's called Kurunji. Another land is called Mullai, that is agricultural land. And there is sea land, there is desert, and I think it's forest land. So Not sure if I'm saying this right. Yeah. Kurunji is mountain. Mullai is forest. Maradam is agriculture land. Neidal is seashore. And Palai is desert. So the first people, the first, if you go back to history and find out who are the first people of the civilization, it goes back to this Kurunji people. Kurunji is mountain people. So why weren't there people in Mullai, which is the plains? These people are not there because there were no plains. It was all flooded, and mountains are the only places where humans lived, is what they say. So
Mm.
if they want to go from one place to another place, they would go from one mountain to another mountain, thinking that's only the piece of land. So more the water receded, and that's when you actually saw the plains. That's when people actually climbed down from the mountain,
Mm.
came to the fields, and started doing agriculture. And agriculture has played a huge part in human evolution. It started in such a short span of time, and if you go back, you will
Right.
find Lord Shiva as the one who taught us agriculture. When that's when humans started making civilizations, and it goes on. So
And Lord Shiva
these people,
and Toth and Viracocha and Quetzalcoatl,
Mhm.
all of them were, during the floods, like essentially restarting. It's like the same story. And, the fact that you're saying India and places like Mexico, Lord Shiva and Quetzalcoatl and these folks are coming back to, restart essentially something. Once the waters kind of recede, then all of a sudden, boom, all these, really advanced civilizations kind of start popping up. And, it's just the similarities just of these demigods that you hear about, whether it's Thoth or Quetzalcoatl or they're just all connected, man. They have to be.
exactly. So, like from looking at this religions from a child's perspective, like if you say there's God, why would there be a God only for the state of Tamil Nadu in South India?
Right.
Why
Right.
would you have a God for just England and Europe?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
God is God for the whole planet, right? So, th-
It's a great way
this
to
is
put
some
it.
question right?
Yeah.
So, if you have a God, he's going to be the God of every civilization all across the world. He's the God,
Right.
but he has different names. The Islam people call him Allah, Hindu people call him Shiva, the Christians call him Isa, and Buddhists call him Lama. It's all put together. And if you go down from this philosophical idea to more of a research angle, you would see that you would find Lord Vishnu in South America. You would find Lord Shiva there. You would find statues of Lord Brahma there. Uh, mm, you will find the same in the Greek civilization. You would find the same in Egyptian civilization. You would find Krishna in Hopi tradition. You would
Mm-hmm.
find Muruga in Marawa tribe. It's all connected. I'm not
Right.
even going to throw this as a surprise anymore because I'm overwhelmed with the knowledge that people gave me and the information that I gathered. I just
Right.
tell this casually. Come on,
Right.
guys, believe it. I'm tired of telling you this.
Right.
It's like that.
It's not shocking
Like
to you anymore.
VJ had talked about
Yeah.
No.
Krishna and Kachina,
Yeah.
and all of those words are just the Tamar words with Native American words. You were talking about mountains, and one thing we
Yeah.
were talking about earlier on the phone, and again, just magically, the Lemurians, island of Mu gets brought up,
Yeah.
which brings us to some interesting stuff that you had talked about Mount Shasta.
I want to hear
And
this.
lately, Mount Shasta's been kind of a buzzy thing online. YouTube,
It's
you've got
always had its lure.
TikTokers, Instagram. Like
Yeah.
Mount Shasta's hot right now, and it's always something that's been on my radar because of the legend of after the fall of Mu, these Lemurians fly in their ships to Mount Shasta and create their inner mountains
Yeah.
civilization, and then are come out when the flood subsides.
Yeah.
But Mount Shasta is this holy land where people have been going
Refuge.
for thousands of years on patronage. And VJ was talking about some similarities and some
Mhm.
things that he found about Mount Shasta. VJ,
Yeah.
if you want to take it away, I just got a cool little photo I found online.
That's cool.
Yeah. Mount Shasta is one of those holy places in the US. People still do pilgrimage to Mount
Yep.
Shasta. They go there and do ceremonies there. And from the research that I did, I found out that this has been going on for quite some time, since the Native American time, and they don't know how long it's been happening before them. And I did some research on for trying, not a research, I would say, just did some Google searches on trying to find out what what is the source of the name Sasta, because Sasta, if you just Google Sasta, you would find a lot of places in India than Mount Sasta, because Sasta is a very common word used in India. It's
Okay.
both Tamil and Sanskrit word. So this the people who lived around Mount Shasta are called Sasti, which is again a Tamil and a Sanskrit word. A lot of people might have heard about this symbol called swastika.
Yep.
Oh
Swastika
yeah,
is a
yeah.
symbol. It's often mistaken for the Hitler's violent symbol, but it's derived from an ancient Hindu symbol. And Sasti means simple or
Mm.
easily accessible. And there is something called Kandasashi Kavasam, means complicated information provided in an easy way. That's what it means. And these people were called Sasti because the language was simple. Anybody could learn that language, and they were so easy people. That's how they derived the name from, and that's how this mountain derived its name as Sasta, Mount Sasta too. And the more I try to figure out more myths associated to the tribes there, and there's this turtle mythology that is very prominent there. And Orissa Balu he's an oceanographer. He does researches based on turtle paths. So he wanted to find out how these people went all the way from India to other continents. It's not easy to travel in an ocean and
Right.
expect to land somewhere and just go and teach people about something.
Right.
Yeah.
He observed these turtles, and he went back to find the history of the importance of turtles being used in various civilizations, and he figured out that the Soras and the many people, the Pandyas, these kings who were from South India, they did not just travel, sail on the ocean, but instead they followed the turtles, which came all the way from Australia, which came all the way from Madagascar, to lay eggs in India, and these baby turtles, without any care, without any parental guidance, they would just go back to Madagascar, where their
Mm-hmm.
parents came from. How do they do that? And he figured out that they use a current, the sea currents,
Right.
to do that. These sea currents are not regular; they happen only at a particular, point of the year. And these turtles knew when these sea currents happen, and that's exactly when they came and lay their eggs. And that's exactly when the eggs would hatch and they would go back to their home.
Right.
So these sailors, they knew these currents, and they would not sail using the wind. Rather, they would just sail using the sea currents and reach where they want to reach.
That's so wild.
Wow.
So this turtle, the importance of turtle in the U.S., in the tribes of the U.S., is very prominent. You would, if you just do a Google search on how important turtle is, you would find a lot of information related to these turtles. And one guy even calls the whole U.S., the North American continent, not the U.S., the whole North American continent, as a turtle transforming into an elephant.
Turtle Island.
And mhm. And these turtles, the turtle mythology is prominent in Chinese civilization too.
Mm-hmm.
I know all
And
this.
right, and these tribes who were there around Mount Sasa, I'm not sure, completely sure, I haven't gathered information, but they also believed in this mythology. And interestingly enough, I was given this information from Mr. Orisa Balu. He asked me to refer to all the things that he shared to me with. Um, I'll tell you some of these. These might not make sense to you, but maybe people who would watch from India, the Tamil people who watch from India, they would definitely make sense of this because they
Sure.
know the language.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he raises a question of how the musical instrument flute was used in Native American culture. And it doesn't come out of nature. It's something that you design and you play it.
Right.
So the flute is an Indian musical instrument, but it was simultaneously found in the Native American culture too. And we can go back to Krishna, Lord Krishna, who was a flute player. If you just
Mm-hmm.
see a picture of Lord Krishna, he would always be found with a flute he
Okay.
plays. So that connects a dot too somewhere down the lane. And some of these words from these Native American culture, there is Tamuli Pass, which sounds like Tamar. There is Tamiyan, which is sounding like Tamar. There is Tamuka, and there is Tamkan. These all sound like the word Tamar. And there is Salinan, which is also a Tamar word. There is Payattu. Payattu means practice. The martial arts, Kung Fu, it was an Indian art which went from South India. The original name of the art was Kalari Payattu. And the Kalari Payattu was, it was taught by an Indian king called Bodhidharma. He went all the way to China to
Hmm.
cure a disease, and then he taught this to the Chinese people. It's called Kalari Payattu. This Payattu word is used there. There is Kalariyadu. Kalariyadu means the same. The Kalari, the first word, means war. That's also a Tamil word. There is Yanai. Yanai simply means elephant. It's also a Native American word, Yana. Mojave, Mojave. Mojave is a tribe in the US, in the Native American,
Hmm.
means Mugawai, means your mouth on the face. And these statues that you find in Easter Islands, they're also called Moai,
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Moai
yeah.
statues. Right, yeah,
Okay.
right. And there is Elamu. Elamu means Iram in Tamil. And Tolava means distance, Tolaivu in Tamil. There is Tonguvan, Tongva tribe in the US, and it's called Tonguvan in Tamil. And there is, he has also mentioned the word Sasta in there, and the way that I explained it,
Right.
explained.
Right.
These are some of these interesting words. So if you're an English person, you travel to China and you find ancient places and name them like Phillips or Henry Morgan.
Right.
How would
Smith.
you find it? Like,
Smith, yeah.
yeah, like right. So if you see an inscription saying Walmart, Supercenter,
Right.
how would you find it? Like it's that feeling where you get
Right.
when you travel to an ancient civilization, a location, and you ask them what's your name, and he says, "My name is Manonmani," because Manonmani is a prominent god in Hinduism, and it's Menominee in the Native American culture. And if you say Menominee to anybody or Manonmani to anybody in South India, they would know what it is. They're like, how did this word? How are you using this word? Is the first question they would ask.
Right.
And interestingly enough, there is Agatyar, who is the most prominent figure in Siddhas. If you haven't heard about what who Siddhas are the people who the wisest people in South India who carried all the information from the world before to this generation. They write songs, they write literature, all kind of literature. And Lord Shiva is said to be Adi Siddha, means he's the first Siddha. And all the Siddhas who came after that, they worshipped Lord Shiva, but they were called by different names. And one of the prominent figures is Agatyar. Agatyar. It's Agathiyar. Agatyar. If you want to tag, hashtag this, you will find a lot of people find this interesting.
Yeah.
And Mr. Orizabalu told me that there is a word that is similar to that, which is Agassia in Native American culture. I find it mind blowing because there's no way that this
Hmm.
is a coincidence, right?
Hmm.
And there is an Agathir mountain in South India. There is Agassiz Peak in North America.
Mm-hmm.
That's no way, a whole mountain is dedicated to him because that's where he sat and meditated for many years. And he did alchemies and many things like Siddha medicines and food. Um, and this entire mountain is dedicated to him. I was about to climb the temple last December with a friend of mine called Litwin. But then, we dropped the plan because she got injured.
Mm.
And I found this very interesting that this mountain has been named Agassiz in the American continent. There has been a lot of things going on between these two pieces of lands. And next time we talk, I'm sure I would have read this book, and I'm going to come up with a lot of more connections.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that'll
Your meeting yesterday spurred on a
Yeah.
whole, like, you're going to go so deep on this stuff. And Bub, I just wanted to ask VJ real quick. We read this article we did on an episode about the Havmasovs. Is that word in any way related to Tamar, or because it was this ancient civilization that was living up in the Sierra Nevada over Death Valley, and then when the water evaporated, they moved up into the mountain, and then the Paiutes and Native American tribes
Knew about them.
knew about them,
Yeah.
and they would visit and come down in their flying canoes, and they had technology, and this person was invited up into their inner
Yeah.
kind of mountain sanctuary. And Havmasovs, just that word just seems so
Strange. It's a strange term.
but it just seems like, they were some kind of a culture that was super duper ancient and
Well, they were
potentially-
seafaring at first,
they
like
were
VJ's saying, but
that's
when the
what made
water
me think
receded,
about
that's
it.
why they stayed up in the mountains and
Yeah.
found like kind of a natural stronghold. But it kind of goes back to your point, VJ, of saying, all these different cultures that were originally up on these peaks because there were no, valleys, there were no plain lands. There was just more little dots of land to start on. It's
Yeah.
just interesting because that's definitely how the Havmas story goes, is kind of like the bathtub being drained, the water recedes, and now, there's all of this land, and they're kind of like, we're going to retreat into these caves in the mountain and build our cities inside this mountain. And that's kind of what it makes you think of with Shasta.
Yeah, does that ring a bell, that word, the Havmasovs, or anything like that
That was
like
the term.
linguistically? I'm just curious, but
Yeah.
if not, we can move on.
No problem.
I was just curious.
Well, yeah, it's a very human mentality to worship your home. Like, people who may have moved from the mountain would say that was our home once upon a time. That's where we came from.
Right.
We're all mountain people,
Right.
and most of these mountains are sacred because of that reason.
Right.
And that's why they say Himalayas is the home of Lord Shiva. Like, anybody with common sense would ask, like, why is he sitting in the ice? Why can't he be somewhere fertile?
Right.
Why is he sitting on
Right.
top of a mountain?
So that's where he
This
came
could be the
from.
reason why. That's where it probably came from.
Gotcha.
That was the only land at that point of time.
Right. No, that makes sense now.
Mhm,
That does make sense.
Mhm.
Man. Wild.
So, yeah, did you want to ask me anything else, Mike? Like,
Yeah, I know you talked about the East Indian myths and some of the stuff in like the St. Lawrence River that we spoke about a little bit as well, that kind of connect, again, more American stories with South Indian myths.
This is also an information that I gathered yesterday from the gentleman. Uh, there is a concept called Saptakanigal in Tamil, means seven holy rivers. And the same concept was found in the Native American culture too. So the tribes that who lived in Canada, they had this myth, and they somehow, through premonition, figured out that there is going to be a European invasion. It's like people from a foreign land is going to be invading them and destroying their lands. So they decided to move down south. They were instructed not to go any up north, rather go down south and occupy lands where they could survive for a bit longer. And these people, they moved to seven different lands, and those seven different lands is it's so similar to this Saptakanigal concept. And I would tell you those seven lands where they were. One of them is St. Lawrence, and there is another spot in Wisconsin. I'm looking through that. Yes, these the gods, they call them the gods, the seven water masses. It's called Migi Luminant with 7 colors. MIIGI, it is
Yeah.
mentioned, Luminant with 7 colors, Saptakanigal. And one of those places is Ottawa River, and another one is Lake Nipissing, and then the two Great Lakes of Wisconsin.
Hmm.
These are the places that they went to. This Saptakanigal is so similar to this myth, and this how there's no way that these two similar stories happened by accident
Hmm.
in two different places of geography.
Phew. Yeah, I mean that's quite a big coincidence if so. I mean the connections just never end, honestly. Like,
That's what I say. It's just everything's connected after a while. You just
yeah, I
kind
mean
of
it's
start feeling
unbelievable.
like you're in one little diorama that's just been played out like a Scooby Doo background. You know, it just keeps playing the same thing over. You're
Yeah.
like, I thought this was different. No, it's kind of the same too. But it's wild once you get enough of a variety, like you're saying too. You go, oh, clearly
Mm.
this is Tamil or this comes from India. I'm seeing this site that
Right.
I recognize, and I'm across the globe. What? That's got to really shake you or stir you up a little bit. I imagine it
Mm-hmm.
would because you wouldn't expect to see something recognizable so far away.
It's a good point.
Exactly.
It would
Yeah,
be
so
very shocking.
When it hits you with Vijay's lens, where he's looking at it
Yeah.
from this growing up in India, this
Yeah.
Indian perspective,
Yeah,
and then you come over here and start
whole-
seeing just like, whoa,
the whole Earth is your home.
combined
Yeah.
with a spiritual awakening that he's having.
Yeah, but it
Um,
goes back to that whole kind of ownership of no, it's my God, no, it's my God, no, it's
Gotta
God,
just let
it's
it
whatever,
all be
Yeah,
one thing.
yeah, we can share.
One thing that we kind of, I had an image that you sent me that was a little earlier in the slide deck that I went back to, and that was this earthwork ceremony that you found in India, and then also an earthwork in Wisconsin. Can you talk about that? I don't know if we can put that image up and you can see, but I put them both up together for us to kind of look at that. But it's pretty wild.
Yeah, one of those questions that I never got answered when I was in the US, trying to figure out what these earthworks are made of.
Mm-hmm.
These mounds, I kind of figured that out. They are actually pyramids, disfigured pyramids covered with dirt and grass. But these earthworks are not the same as the mounds. They are
Right.
often mentioned together, which is confusing, but it's not actually the same.
Right.
These earthworks, they have a significance. These earthworks are done specifically for somebody to look from up above.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not made for people to look from down below because you can't see what is there. If you see Serpent Mound, there's nothing for you to see if you're walking around it. You
Right.
have to see from an aerial
Get
perspective.
way
That's
up.
when you understand that it's a giant serpent, right? So I asked a few people that I met there and asked them, what is this serpent mound made of? What is the material which is made of? Is it rock or is it granite? It's what exactly is the material? And people gave me mixed answers. They didn't know what it was. And I had this question running in my mind all the time, and someday I thought I should figure it out. And I heard about people digging into the serpent mound, so I thought maybe it's just dirt, and if dirt is standing strong for this long, there has to be a particular a way, a manner in which this dirt has been conditioned to
Right.
stand for
Mm-hmm.
that long.
Right.
So, when you make pottery, you use clay to make pottery. You dry it and then you burn it. So during this drying process, all the water goes out of it, and during this burning process, the rest of the water goes out of it, and the clay hardens. The molecules come close to each other and it hardens. That's when they can stand good for thousands of years. That's why you are able to find pottery from 3,000 years ago and certain
Right.
Mm-hmm.
civilizations 4,000 years ago. So this technology that might have been used to make this earthwork is what I guessed, because it's been standing there for so long. So there's no way that just piling up mud could stand
Oh
there.
no! They
So,
they have base of clay. There's different layers of three different kinds of sand that were brought in from all over the place. Most earthworks and mounds. For those who are just listening, if you could just describe these images, we have two here that we're showing. One on the left is where was that image come from?
A tall shape in the ground.
I think that is in the state of Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, right? Okay.
Yeah. It's a very huge earthwork, and it's often called a lonely man or earthwork of a man. You will see the road running right across it, destroying like a little bit of it. That gray line that you see there is
That's a
actually a
road.
road.
Oh yeah.
It's a highway.
Yeah.
So
so
it used to
we're-
actually connect
looking
down to
at-
the feet.
Yep.
The original effigy.
They cut
was-
him off at the knees is what we're looking at
Jesus.
here for those that are listening.
How's that
And we
for
can
history?
post these images in a
Whoever the
description.
civil engineer was on that one was like, this will be a good one.
Yeah, but
Cut
then on
this
the
guy off
right
the
you see
legs.
them creating this this figure
That's a cool picture.
on the ground
Yeah.
with these different layers of, I'm guessing, sand and dirt, but it's being sculpted. And
Yeah.
then they're even it's got a lot of color. I mean, it's beautiful. Maybe that's what the earthworks looked like a long time ago. Maybe they were completely
Had more
decorated
decoration
like
to 'em.
this, and the serpent had, who knows?
Yeah. Well, we know the serpent effigy
Exactly.
has been not twisted over time, but certain aspects have been remediated,
Yeah.
like the
Who
little
knows?
horns around the head.
Now it just
and-
is grass, but what if it looked like
yeah,
something
absolutely.
completely different?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's tough to tell.
What do you think
Ah,
about that,
tough.
VJ?
I know for sure that Serpent Mound is a leftover of a huge temple. There was a huge temple there. Interestingly enough, Serpent Mound is also located right by a stream,
Right.
which should
Brush
have
Creek.
been a river.
Right.
Brush
Right.
Creek, yeah.
It should have been a river. At some point of time, it should have been a bigger river.
And a
And-
spring, a really,
Mhm.
really like famous spring that just so
Mhm.
happened had a crop circle in 2003 right across the road from it,
Yeah.
I heard
which
about it.
is super super rare. In Ohio, it hasn't had that many crop circles.
I'm gonna be
Oh.
going to Serpent Mountain this summer.
Yeah, let's make a weird family trip.
Clark Griswold style.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great comments
Not, not,
tonight.
a,
Yeah, go ahead, VJ.
not a lot of people notice these mounds right by Serpent Mound. There are two mounds that you would see still
Right.
sitting there,
Yeah.
and few of them have been destroyed, which again proves that this Serpent Mound is not just one piece of
Nope.
earthwork. It's a piece of a large puzzle,
Right.
of a
Yep.
bigger construction.
Totally.
Right.
It's a whole big complex, and you would see houses built right by the Serpent Mound. I don't know how they were able to encroach into that space, but a lot has been destroyed, and we are seeing only a little bit of that.
Right.
And I would say that this is a Shiva temple. People might get offended saying, "Hey, why do you want to bring Hinduism into this?" But this is not Hinduism.
It's much more ancient
one
than that.
group of people calling Shiva. Another group of people might have called him with a different name. It's one God
Right.
across the world.
Right.
And I'm mentioning the name Lord Shiva because that's how he is mentioned now, and he does not go by any name in any other religions that is present right now.
Yeah.
And the name I mentioned Lord Shiva here is because he is the teacher of Kundalini yoga, and the serpent is Kundalini serpent. And in Tibetan Buddhist culture, in Indian Hinduism, in yogic culture, serpent and the Kundalini serpent, Lord Shiva, are so associated. And he's said to be the first Siddha who actually raised his Kundalini to become Shiva, Lord Shiva.
Hmm.
And this place is educating humans about Kundalini yoga. There's no way this is not a Lord Shiva temple.
Wow.
That's wild.
You see
That's
what I'm
really
saying?
cool. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. It makes sense.
Right.
It does.
And there is mentions about Lord Shiva in Mexico and in South American cultures. I think we have talked a lot of things about it
Some
already.
statues that
But this earthwork, this earthwork, the question that I had in my mind when I saw these earthworks in the US, they finally got answered when I came to India. The reason that I sent you these two pictures and I wanted you to put them together is
Yeah.
because when I was in India, and I went to this festival called Mayana Kolai. It's a festival where you pay respect to the dead,
Mm-hmm.
and it also connects an interesting festival. And I was researching on Halloween, trying to figure out what is the origin of Halloween, and it did not have a reason to celebrate it. Halloween is not related to any kind of a European festival at all, and it actually is a transformation of another festival where the Native Americans or the Mexicans, they celebrated a festival of the dead,
Right.
where they pay respect to the
Dias
dead,
des Muertes.
and that, right, that's what they call it.
Yep.
So this is the festival that has transformed in the European settlers culture as Halloween.
Okay.
Day of the Dead.
And this Mayana Kolai in South India, in the native culture, is also paying respect to the dead. But how do they do it? And this was the first time I was actually allowed to watch something like this by my family. They don't allow it because this happens
Hmm.
in a crematory. That's where the bodies are burnt,
Right.
right next to the earthwork is where the bodies are burnt. And I found that they do this earthwork. They spend like few days doing this earthwork, fully made of clay, and they on the day of the festival, they put a lot of organic material on it. They burn it. They burn the organic material, which makes the clay, just like how we make a pottery. That's why I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned the pottery thing. They burn it, and this earthwork now is ready. Like it's a strong construction made of clay, which is going to last for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And in since they keep celebrating it, they don't let it last for a long time because they'll have to do it again. It gets destroyed, and next year they will build a brand new one. And these this lonely man that you see there, I see this. They have celebrated Mayana Kolai
Right. Right.
in this. This is probably the last festival, the earthwork from the last festival that they were able to celebrate before the invasions happened. And
Wow.
That's
I know it's in a different style altogether, right? Like it's a totally, not you can't expect the same exact figure
no.
because
Right. Right.
if you see Mhm. if you see Buddha in Afghanistan, he'll have big eyes. If you see the
Right.
same Buddha in China, he would have small eyes.
Right.
In
Right.
India, he would have curly hair, and
Right.
it's all different,
That's
but
a
it's
good
all
point.
Lord Buddha. It's right.
The
Just
skinny
like that, you
Buddha,
will
the fat,
find
the chubby Buddha.
right.
There's
Mhm.
the very skinny Buddha.
Yeah.
When Siddhartha was making, when he was living with the people in the cave, like the story of before he became the Buddha, he was starving himself, so you have like where his ribs are all sucked in, and there's all different styles. That's a great point. This is cool. This
Right.
is really interesting. You
Right.
sent me that, and it's like, man.
And it didn't stop there. It didn't stop right there because when I was in Serpent Mound, I found that people, farmers from all over the country gather there. They get seeds and soil that is charged. They say that the soil that they collect from Serpent Mound, they throw a bit of soil in their fields, in their agricultural fields. That kind of charges their soil and yields more. And you won't believe, I was standing right there watching the whole ceremony, watching a lot of things happening, and a lady picked up mud from the ground and she put it in her pocket. She picked up some more and gave it to me, saying, "Go put it in your house or put it in your field. It'll charge your land." It's
Hmm.
like, what? This is exactly what happens in another continent.
Right. Right.
Wow.
That's
Right.
funny. That's really
And
funny.
yeah, it's got a scientific background too.
Right.
So yeah, I have watched a video. I'm not able to recall where I watched this video, but people who make this earthwork, they don't just pick up clay from random places and do it. Rather, they pick up clay. They do a lot of things with this clay. It's organic and medicinal things that they do. They manufacture a particular type of a bacteria in this soil.
Okay.
That bacteria, it is what you need to produce more nitrogen for your agricultural field. So what you're basically doing is carrying this bacteria from this land and putting it in your field, which is going to multiply in a few days, and it's
Wow.
going to
Yeah.
produce
Yeah.
more nitrogen,
Culture.
Yeah.
more yield.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Never
Wow.
thought of that.
right?
Jeez,
So I can keep going, but this is this is for you to understand because
Yeah.
I mean I'm telling you only the things that I found in the U.S. and India.
Yeah.
right,
This is,
right.
it just never ends, man. You have
Mhm.
gone through so much since you left. I mean, you had a lot of cool information before you left. And I think just with your travels, you're putting, you're meeting a lot of interesting people too, which helps that are turning you on to. I
Right.
mean, our next episode will be about these books. I have a feeling once you get a chance to dig through those. But I mean, this has just been an unbelievable conversation, like always.
It's a ride.
VJ's the
It's a ride.
heavyweight champ, the intercontinental champ,
Yeah.
the heavyweight champ of the Strange Road. 100%.
And I know by the next time we talk to him, he's going to have more.
Yeah,
That's
he's not
that's
done.
what's great. That's what's great. Yeah, you are endlessly learning and trying to gather and keep building upon what you've already learned. But you can see your enthusiasm for it and your interest in disseminating that to people that want
Yeah.
to understand it, which is also a benefit. You know, a lot of times it's kind of like, oh, I learned this, you go learn it yourself. And having that perspective to be that teacher aspect of it is very encouraging because it's so easy going to talk to you about it. You know what I
Right.
mean? It
Mhm.
yeah,
VJ
it's such a normal conversation.
Yep. VJ, is there anything else you want to leave us with? Is there any, something maybe that we haven't, a message that you want to share
Yeah.
to everybody?
Yeah.
Well, I haven't talked about my spiritual experience in this journey at all. I'm just providing the entertaining information in this. To me, it's entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
All these supporting evidences are like interesting and makes me do more research.
Sure.
It's not what I'm doing actually. My journey, the spiritual journey, is way more interesting than what I was expecting it to be. The few months after I came to India, I met a few people. Normally I don't get to meet these unusual people who are nomads and who are aloof from the entire society. One of those people are called agoris. Um you might have heard about it. If you don't know who they are, you should do a Google search on them. Um, a prominent thing about these agoris are they are cannibals. They eat human meat, but
There you go.
so many things were told to me about them, which are all false. And people told me, the way they dress up or not dress up, the way they look, the cannibalism, and uh, the practices, the way they pray to God, everything makes them look so rude,
Right.
and nobody wants to go near them. People run
Mm-hmm.
away if they see an agori here in India. But uh, I was lucky enough to meet a guy who was able to understand English. This guy changed my perspective about spirituality, and he's changed my perspective about agoris too. He was one of the most pleasant guys that I've ever talked to,
Wow.
and he was funny too. I don't speak his language. He speaks Hindi. I speak English. He can understand a little bit of English, and we spent some time together, quite some time. I'm not able to disclose all the things that we did and talked, but I would give you the highlights of what you might want to know. Uh, when I told him about this is what happened to me and this is what I'm doing, I'm not sure if you're the right person to discuss, but do you have anything for me? And he said, like, you're caught in a small bubble still, and out of this bubble is the whole world, and you have no idea what's coming for you, and you're not ready for this at all yet.
Mm.
There's a reason you and I am talking now about
Mm-hmm.
this. And interestingly, many people that I meet say, hey, I was waiting for you. And that happens to be. I feel so lucky when somebody
I'll
says that.
bet.
I know you're going to come to
I'll
me.
bet.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So this is one of those guys who said, yeah, I know you're going to come here to me. And what you are doing right now and what the rest of the human beings are doing right now is completely out of order. And we have to This is a time for repair. People have to quit what they are doing right now. Everybody has to quit and repair from the soul to the earth. He said, from the soul to the earth. We have to repair the earth. We have to repair the soul. There is nothing else important right now.
Right.
Share markets are not important. Skyscrapers are not important. Banks are not important. Money is not important. Taxes, not, nothing is important right now. This is the time given to us by the grace of Almighty to use your mind and repair. But if you don't, this is the end. So there is a great reset, and it's happening very soon. And if you are wise enough, you would face that happily, just like how you witness everything that's happening in the world. But if you're terrified of it, it's going to be bad. That's
Yeah.
what he
Right,
said.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Great message, dude. What a way to
Keep rocking
what
2023.
a way to wrap that with
Yeah.
and knowledge coming from maybe a place that you least expected it with these cannibal
Oh, yeah.
sadhus,
Well,
you know, that are unapproachable in some people's minds, but you know, VJ's just like,
just get a bad
I'm
rap.
gonna go hang out with these guys
Yeah.
and see if I can learn something, and that's why we love you, VJ. You're not afraid to go hang
No.
out with cannibal sadhus and gain
There's a lesson to be learned.
maybe the one of the best nuggets of your entire life looking back in 10
Right.
years, and maybe that meeting with that person, you know, looking back put you on even closer to the path that you're on now. So
Well,
Their practices are so crazy. You won't believe. When I see a homeless man in the U.S., I wish I could take the homeless man and make him meet this Agori
wow.
and teach him his practices. Because two things that affect a homeless person in the U.S. One is the weather, the cold weather.
Right.
The other one is hunger.
Mm-hmm.
These Agoris, they don't have hunger, and no sub-zero temperature can affect them because they don't eat for 6 months or 1 year or 2 years.
Whoa.
They just don't eat. Yeah, it's against science. It's against belief. I know there are a lot of people in India that don't eat. They don't eat at all, and these Agoris can live in sub-zero temperatures without like nothing happened to them. You would
I'm
find
gonna
this
have to read up
Iceman.
on this.
Yeah, right.
You got my interest peaked.
Yeah, you hear about the ancient people in India or
Yeah.
through meditation that only take a spoonful of something or
Yeah, I've heard
just
different
drink water.
tales about people
Yeah.
existing on very sub standards of caloric intake.
Right,
but
right.
I've never heard of anything of this to years of that. That's wild. I'm gonna have to look into that.
Yeah.
Got me on homework duty.
Just do a Google search on Iceman. There is a
Oh, yeah.
Westerner.
Vamp-
I'm not sure.
Oh,
Wim Hof.
Wim Hof.
Yep.
Yeah,
Wim Hof.
Yeah,
regulates
I
his
think that's the
breathing.
guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's wild.
And he lives in sub-zero temperature.
Climbed
He can
Everest in his
withstand
underwear or
like-
something. I mean, he does crazy stuff. He ran a half marathon north of the Arctic Circle barefoot and in boxers.
Yeah.
And they thought they were gonna have to amputate his toes and stuff. And he's like, "No, they'll
I'm
be
good.
fine.
Yeah.
They'll be
that's
fine."
These sadhus.
And later, you look at him, and his toes were fine. I mean,
Yeah.
he's mind blowing. Wim.
Correct. He learned it from
the
people
side of
similar
his-
to
It's
the
breath.
Aborigines.
It's
Yeah.
breath.
Right, and
It is
he-
breath
what he
work.
does.
Yeah.
it is not. He's nothing compared to these people.
Well, I believe
Yeah.
it. I
Nothing at
believe
all.
it. I believe it.
Right.
But it is one of those things you're talking about pushing the limits. Like, I do it just because I kind of forget to eat sometimes. But I mean, it might be 12, 24, 36 hours in between meals sometimes just because
Right.
it's not as important to me. It's not something that's on my mind. I eat when my body tells me I need energy to a certain degree. And that keeps extending at certain levels to where I'm like, man, it used to be 10 hours. That's what.
No.
I'm not going for any goal. I just, again, once my body kind of tells me, hey, you need food and intake, then I'm good for it. But
Yep.
I don't have I have to eat at morning and 12 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and I don't do that. That's wild.
Should go hang out with the cannibal sadhus, bub.
I might do it sometime. Go hang out with
Take us
VJ.
there,
go
VJ.
through it.
I am. That's what I was about to say. Like, the next time we meet, maybe in 6 months or 1 year, I don't know how long it's going to be. I would have more information about this gentleman community there
Yeah.
Yes.
because I'm going to be spending a lot of time with them.
Well, let
that's
us
who
know.
I'm
We
gonna
need
be
to set
hanging
that
out
trip up.
with.
Oh, we're gonna set it.
Yeah, that's great.
But VJ, we're gonna wrap this up.
It's been a pleasure.
We will obviously
Yeah.
talk to you so much more in the future,
Absolutely.
and we're gonna start planning this. I'm even more inspired to start getting the ball rolling on
I like
a project.
that. There we go.
VJ said he's got some of the sites already planned out. We'll start building kind of a basis of
Let's do it.
a production of
Let's
a
do it.
shoot. We can do a travel series. It could
I dig
be
that.
an informational series.
Yeah.
But I see like Tom Serpent Mound Impact Crater video, just multiply that by, maybe it's episodic,
Yeah.
temple to temple.
Who
We'll
knows?
see.
There's
But
a lot. There's a lot.
Super exciting. VJ, we want to thank you
Very much so. We appreciate
very
you.
much for joining us tonight. Again, VJ is, you can reach him through us.
Yeah. If you
and-
need to contact him or have questions for him, we can relate them to him.
Yep, and we have, if you want to, I know, VJ, you do accept friends on through Facebook and some of that stuff, but hit us up if you guys have questions for VJ. We can definitely help you guys out. And we want to
Absolutely.
thank everybody that tuned in tonight with the live stream.
We really want to thank you for tuning in
Absolutely.
and checking
And,
this episode out.
There's some creators here in our chat that, Burton from Local Legends, Appalachian Intelligence.
Yep. AI.
Which Kenneth was just on their show, I guess, last night. So
Oh,
we're waiting
nice.
for that to come out.
Nice.
So, thank you to VJ.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everybody, JoJo and Justin
McGeejo.
and Justin Justin Lamb.
There you go.
Also Justin England
Justin
and his wife were
England,
joining
his
us
wife were in.
earlier. Who am I missing? Anybody? Feel free. Flux Capacitor,
Flux Capacitor,
as always.
Necro, everybody. We had the
Necro,
whole gang up in
Necro
here today.
Mechanimal.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so very much.
You know where to find us if you don't. We're
Yep.
on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. We're all over the place. Mikey. What's yours? Is it just Mikey?
At Mikey Leisner.
At Mikey Leisner.
Yep.
Kyle Stonard.
Yep.
Kyle on the ones and twos, the wizard.
And you can
Disbro
find
helping us out with the audio tonight.
Matt Disbro.
Again.
Yep.
It's a nice little package we got going on here. We hope to keep bringing them to you guys.
Yep, absolutely. VJ, you're the best. Last words for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you so much, Bob, and thank you, Kyle and Kenneth. You guys are doing a great job. Keep doing it.
Thank you. Thank
Appreciate
you.
it,
You're the
VJ.
best, man.
Welcome.
Dude, that was awesome.
Have a great
Thank
day,
you.
VJ.
You
And
too. You too.
all you guys at home, thank you so very
appreciate
much
ya.
for kicking it with us tonight.
Yeah.
Bub, that was a
Hit the
fun one.
rock.
Yes,
Hit the rock.
absolutely. And go find us. Spotify, Apple Podcasts,
Yeah.
all major platforms. Hit that like and subscribe button. Give us a rating, 5 stars or bust.
5 stars or bust.
Hit us
We're
up on
stealing that.
Instagram, Facebook. We're all over the place.
We'll try to get back to you as soon as we can. Reach out, contact us, hit us up. If you have something to share with us and think it would be good information, a good conversation, give us a message.
Thumbs
We'll
up,
get
baby.
back to you.
Yep, absolutely. You guys are the
Till
best.
then,
Adios.
peace.
Drop that bass.